that's when I said, I'll just wipe my hands on my penis. And she was really shocked by that. But I said, no one will believe you if you tell them.
Oh man, so that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
And no one does, because it's such a stupid thing to say.
It was so funny that I froze in time. That's great. Welcome to Red Planet, everyone. Oh my gosh, how are we all doing? It's a new week, and we've got a great guest for you. Kira's already laughing. That's how we like
Frozen
things.
in time.
I'm frozen in time. I can still communicate via telepathy because I'm just so based.
He is frozen in time.
It's a really good freeze frame too.
For anyone listening on the webcam on the show, yeah, I've just had a little bit of an incident.
Apologies that we're running a little bit late. There's a little mix up with who is engineering the show today. Turns out Mule is engineering the show today. So I would like everyone first and foremost to thank Mule. You know, give Mule a round of applause if you're listening. If you're listening to our podcast, you know, feel free to break out in spontaneous applause wherever you are.
If you want to whoop, if you want to
unless you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel.
If you want to do the death grips on the bus right now while you're listening, all of those would be appreciated.
Yeah,
I would love that.
So yeah, we're a smidge behind, but thank you for your patience. We are now live.
But wait,
the clapping unfroze Mule.
I have a question, and it's for Tim. Tim, what was the most base thing you did this week?
Ooh, my space thing I did this week. I was thinking about this earlier. I was pretty busy with work, so I didn't get up to too much. But I did meet up with a friend who I have done like a lot of like podcasts and streams and stuff with before to talk about a new project that he's got coming up as like a kind of just kind of like a New Zealand focused left content sort of thing and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
Okay.
He's someone that's been doing that kind of stuff for a long time and is like very like has like a really great network and stuff. So I think it's really promising. So
yeah,
so
that sounds sick.
That was probably the most base thing I did this week. What about you, Kira? What was the most base thing that you did this week?
Other than today, educating my mom on feminism and how women back in the day didn't have it actually better.
What, they didn't have to work, they just got to
and men respected them more because they courted them, and it was all very formal. And if you read Pride and Prejudice, think
like
about
Bridgerton, exactly like Bridgerton.
It's just like Bridgerton.
Yeah. I haven't even seen Bridgerton. I just think it looks right.
Other than that, I started playing Fallout New Vegas. So
based the extreme praxis,
based in trans.
Now you're a real communist. Next thing you're gonna be changing up the agenda.
Yeah, my community definitely is about the trans agenda, and they're definitely trying to trans me. So this is part of that. So we'll see what happens.
A lot of people like pay a lot of money to get I was gonna say forced feminized, but I guess that's not your that wouldn't be your situation.
Well, that's a whole that's oh god. I don't know.
No, she's playing Fallout New Vegas. It turns out she's a girl. It's very exciting news.
Wow. You're finally come out as a girl. Cool. What about Mule?
Yeah.
Other than building a bow while we've been speaking, he's currently flexing it.
I have to watch this stream. What's going on?
Like an archery bow. But babe, what is this? What's happening?
I got a bow.
It really is
all right.
Mule Day. It is solidly, firmly Mule Day.
I got a bow. The most base thing I did this week though was the arrows are warped. That's unfortunate.
Hey Mule, I contacted you in Discord, but you don't think you saw it. The on-screen chat's not doing anything.
Maybe I'll do that after.
But you know what? If that's your creative like outlook for the stream, that's the way you want to express yourself. I don't ever want to suppress your
silencing chat, and only we get to speak, and chat is no longer in the archive of the stream.
No chat screen based.
What was the most base thing that you did this week except for silencing chat?
So yeah, it's been a bit of a wild week. Well, it's been a bit of a wild start to the year with GMTU. We've done a lot of awesome base stuff, but at the same time, we've also had a couple of committee members step down. So that's kind of it's just kind of slowed things down a little bit. It's not the end of the world, and you know, we're sort of moving on regardless of that. And but because of that, it's meant that one of the member solidarity officers, who is also the secretary of the committee, has had to concentrate on secretary stuff rather than member solidarity stuff. So I've actually taken it on myself because I was so depressed that I got my drone stuck in a tree on Monday. So I thought, well, I'm not working on my video this week. So I'll actually spend this time and organize the entirety. We have like a spreadsheet document that has all the support requests of all the different sort of tenants and stuff that come to us with problems. I called all of them, emailed all of them, made sure that they were all sort of like organized and they had a member solidarity officer assigned to them and stuff like that. And if there was someone who's put like notes in the document, I chased them up and I said, where are you at with this? It's all up to date. It's all up to date. It's great. Everything's getting done. Things are getting moved on. People's disputes are getting handled. And also we have 2 new member solidarity officers who are ready to take on their own cases. And one of them has already done that. The other one, I'm going to be speaking to her tomorrow when I go through the list to sort of like give her first dispute to handle. And I'm very excited because they're both really awesome people, and they're both really good at just like various different things. Like for example, one of the members, Ben, he's just really good at writing letters, and that's like the main thing that we sort of get members to do in their disputes. And the other member, Kat, she's just like really friendly. Like I was handling a dispute with her, and she invited not just me but also the member who we're like, you know, working on behalf of, round to her house for tea to actually like get together in real life.
That's so nice.
Yeah, she cooked us food and stuff. It was really good. So, you know, really excited to see.
Wait, do British people actually like get together for tea?
Tea like is a northern English thing. It just means dinner.
We also get together for tea sometimes.
We also do get together for tea sometimes, just to make it more confusing.
So how do you differentiate them? Like, you want to come over for tea? Yeah, sure. What are we having?
You don't really. You just, you know, to be honest, if you're going to invite someone around for a cup of tea, the beverage tea, you'd probably say, do you want to come around for a brew or a cuppa?
A cuppa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A wimbrel.
What do you call a beer?
We call those wibbly flaps. We call those chumbly boobs.
It's true.
What do you call the chumbly boobs? You know?
Yeah. But that's the most base thing that I did this week. Ooh, what about Sophie?
Whoa. This is actually from before the show last week, but I wasn't on last week, so I'll let you know anyway. Last Sunday morning, I was in a counter demo against the bunch of fascists who were doing a rally in Hyde Park, and I was one of the chant leaders. So a pretty important feature for counter demos, especially if you're trying to drown people out, is that you want to like make your chants as uniform as possible across the crowd. So it's really important when you have call and response for the people who are calling to be like spread out and working in unison. And I've said this on stream already, but I had a bit of a cold, and I still showed my dedication to fighting for, you know, my existence by screaming at the top of my lungs at cops for a few hours anyway, and then my voice was completely wrecked for the rest of the week. But yeah, it was good fun. We also like did some chants that I'd come up with, and I was very happy with that. Like, you know. We got to yell at some cops that they're all brothers with Wayne Couzens, the guy who killed Sarah Everard, and they all looked pretty fucking shook by us doing that. So that was a pretty good moment, and that was definitely the most base thing I did in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool.
Nice.
I do believe we have a lot of news to get through. So Tim, do you want to tell us about climate marches in Aotearoa?
Yeah, let's get into it. So this was just this weekend. Climate strikes, especially with students and stuff, aren't uncommon down here. There's like usually at least one big one every year, you know. for the last couple of years, this has kind of been happening. Usually it's like a bunch of orgs kind of get together. And, you know, even has like, they even have support from some of the more lefty kind of mainstream parties like the Greens Party and stuff. So yeah, that's a kind of quite a normal thing. But then I think this year they've been a lot more kind of emboldened by the recent, you know, like weather events. Like we've had like the cyclones, the flooding, all that kind of stuff. So I think there was like they were particularly kind of I think you know, like, well, I mean, obviously they're always relevant, but I think that like they're being seen more as like kind of relevant to a lot more kind of, you know, like the mainstream public this time around. So yeah, thousands and thousands of people were marching on, I think it was Saturday afternoon. Yeah, Saturday afternoon. I didn't even like know it was gonna be a thing until literally like I was at work and people were like, oh yeah, like, you know, there's like these big you know, marches and stuff. So maybe I'm out of the loop on that one. But yes, so there was thousands of people all in the big like major centers of New Zealand, Aotearoa, so Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. Yeah, it was it looked pretty good. It definitely did skew towards a younger crowd. Like I think like a lot of these ones, like I was saying, more towards like I think even in the past when they've been on like weekdays and stuff, they will, you know, like kids will just not show up to school and go to these big marches, which is kind of cool. But
Nice.
yeah, so they were pretty unified. They all, in all the different cities, they all had like a unified kind of set of demands, which were all like you know, no fossil fuel, no new fossil fuel exploration in mining, which is like, you know, something that we've talked a lot about on here before. There's something that pops up in
The barest possible minimum, yeah.
yeah, and Andreas Malm's How to Blow Up a Pipeline is like, this is like, you know, this is the most basic first step sort of thing,
Yeah.
you know, like to you know, there's already all the existing like, you know, mines and kind of all that and rigs and shit like that, and it's basically just to not make any more. So
Yeah,
just kind of cap it off with what's happening there, and then obviously the goal is to like, you know, keep scaling back production, you know, from there. But yeah, so that was their main one, but also things like you know, like a rebate for e-bikes and, you know, like all kinds of stuff like that.
Cool.
There was stuff about marine protection as well, which is a particular kind of interest down here, because a lot of oil exploration in New Zealand is focused around a big area offshore that is like the habitat of a bunch of endangered animals, like Maui's dolphin and stuff like that. So,
wow,
you know, and it's like, you know, like it'll be like a marine reserve, and they'll be like, okay, well, you know, we can't do anything here, but then for some reason, like, you know, like oil, you know, all these, you know, big petrochemical companies will get licenses to like explore there, and it's like, why is that a thing, you know? So I think everyone knows why that's a thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, so down in Christchurch, the marchers even breached the front doors of the city council offices and just kind of did a big sit-in for a while there.
Nice.
Yeah, and they the leaders were really you know, like they kept bringing up the fact, you know, like the recent weather events and stuff like that, to kind of like bring it home to people that it's like, this is, you know, like these are linked, like these are not a separate thing. This is what it's all about. It's, you know,
which is also something that Malm talks about in How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Absolutely. That we should like demonstrate right after big weather events, right? So I don't know if they planned it since then, but like it's really good timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of their points was what was it? Tio Manukua had said, if the response for COVID can happen this quick, surely the response for a worldwide disaster, a natural breakdown, can happen too, which I think is like, you know, it's like really interesting because I mean, like, yeah, it's like COVID was like a huge kind of, well, COVID is like a huge ongoing kind of problem, but like the climate is also like, you know, probably more dangerous for all life in general, but the response is just to ignore it. But Yeah, and so the Auckland March went up Queen Street from Britomart up to Victoria Park. But yeah, they had some leadership from some unions there, the Unite Union. The co-president Xavier Walsh was really good for talking about the way that the government has kind of failed to address a lot of climate stuff from like both sides. You know, like it wasn't a like, oh yeah, national sucked and whatever, blah blah blah. It's he was saying that you know, like both major political parties, Labour and National, have failed us, but he specifically wanted to highlight National, the opposition party, who are kind of like, we might get in next time. It's kind of looking maybe that way. That they have plans to reopen deep sea oil drilling. Like that's one of the things. They're like, we need to build up our economy after COVID and all this kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the planet to do that, you know. So yeah, but he had this line he finished on the end. I can smell the fossil fuels on your breath, which is like a shout out to an old like an old, there was a New Zealand politician a million years ago that was talking about this, about nuclear stuff, and he was, you know, I think he said something like, I can smell the uranium on your breath or whatever. So it was like an interesting callback to that. Nice. But yeah, one of the best chants that I thought, speaking of chants, was there was I think it was the Auckland one. The chant was, "What's the solution? Revolution." Which
fucking based.
You know,
we had a little impromptu viewing of Judas and the Black Messiah in the Discord the other day. It should have been alongside like a scheduled one, but we've ticked over into March now, so I guess that just was the February viewing party. And that's there's a bit at the start of that where you hear people singing revolution is the only solution. It's very good.
Is that a spin off of the old slogan, dilution, or the solution is dilution, or something like that? I think that was like an old slogan that they used when they were just dumping like hazardous crap like trash and runoff and stuff into the ocean and be like, it's so vast, so the solution is dilution.
I have to assume it's an older one than that, right? Because it's the solution and revolution rhyme, and
but yeah, no, a lot of the speakers were really good, like actually linking the climate stuff directly to capitalism and you know, like you know, like emissions and stuff like that. And yeah, most of them talked, or like had people, specific speakers talking about you know, linking it to like Indigenous issues and government inaction and stuff. So I think it was pretty good. Like you know, like I think it's good to see a lot of these things being like, I think really like youth focused, because I think these are the people, like they're in school now, you know, there's like these kids with like Harry Styles on their signs being like, you know, we don't want the planet to be as hot as Harry or whatever.
Oh my God.
It's like, these are the kids that might you know, give a little bit of time and they'll be reading Andreas Malm and then they'll be like, oh, okay, well, let's, you know, So I think it's promising.
Matt actually made a really interesting point to me recently, which was she was talking about like reading lists and reading groups in organizations, and she was just like, as long as like a few people are reading the books, like the ideas permeate through a group really quickly. And so like, it's not like the kid with the Harry Styles sign has to read Andreas Malm, so long as like all their friends read Andreas Malm.
Or like someone that is like leading an organization is like familiar with like, you know, theory stuff. Also, and just as a side note, the movie for How to Blow Up a Pipeline trailer came out. Looks interesting. It's like wild that it's like, you know, it's like a book about, you know, current events and political theory and all this kind of stuff, but they've made like a story out of it. So
it's really cool.
We were talking already in the Discord about maybe doing some kind of watch party situation when that
we'll chuck it on the front of the next watch party, like just before we start the proper movie. We'll watch the trailer for that. I think,
and then when it comes out we can figure out something like that. So something really funny is happening to Kira right now.
What are you talking about?
Nothing. I feel like I'm at church where like my brother and I would poke each other and like try to make each other laugh, but we can't. So it's like a million times funnier.
If you're listening to the podcast,
my camera making me smaller and smaller.
Oh no! I've lost you.
It's because she complained that she was too big, and now
that is what it was.
Now she's just gone.
Just trying Just trying to make everyone happy, you know?
But speaking, we have a lot of news to get through. And so speaking of the climate, I've actually got some good news. I'm kidding. Europe is running out of water. After its driest summer in 500 years, much of Europe is in the grip of a winter drought driven by climate breakdown that is prompting growing concern among governments over the water security for homes, farmers, and factories across the continent. A study published in January by Graz University of Technology in Austria, whose scientists used satellite data to analyze groundwater reserves, concluded that Europe has been in drought since 2018, and its water situation was now very precarious. I actually looked at some of the imaging for this. It looks like they've used like thermal cameras to basically like, if you look with thermal imaging at the like land masses on Earth, when it's hot, like you can basically just see where the groundwater is, because like if there's groundwater, the ground will absorb the heat way better, and if there's no groundwater, then it's all just fucking scorched. So there was this really interesting map they showed that showed how like Europe actually just doesn't have any fucking groundwater. All of Spain has been in drought since January 2022, but water supplies in Catalonia have fallen so low, authorities this week introduced new laws, including a 40% reduction in water used for agriculture, a 15% reduction for industrial uses, and a cut in the average daily supply per inhabitant from 250 litres to 230 litres. Ruben Del Campo, a spokesperson for the State Meteorological Agency AMET, said the situation showed no sign of improving over the coming months. He said, we've noticed the droughts in the south of Spain are lasting longer, and that when the rains come, they're shorter but more intense. It's badly spaced out. When the rains are hard, they're less useful for refilling reservoirs and watering the fields, which need gentler rain. Especially, this is one of the like really pernicious cycles of climate change that people will point out. That if it's worth saying, if you haven't had this pointed out to you before, when there's a drought, the ground soil becomes really unabsorbent because it's been dried out, and it actually just can't take in the water. And then so if you're swinging between, you know, kind of warm and some nice rain, the soil will absolutely absorb it, and then you can use that land to grow stuff on. If you're going between baking hot and torrential downpour, you're just going to get drought, flood, drought, flood, drought, flood. And like, you won't be able to, the soil won't absorb the water, and everything will flood and all the infrastructure will break. And it's just like, it'll just get fucking biblical. Meteorologist Joseph Eitzinger of Vienna's Institute of Meteorology and Climatology told DPA news agency, if this spring's weather is similar to that of 2022, dryness will increase significantly. He pointed to historically low water levels at Lake Neusiedl, at fucking Vienna, a key water source straddling the border between Austria and Hungary. So yeah, some nice upbeat news there. Kira, do you want to tell us some more great, exciting, cool, fun, happy news?
Oh boy, would I love to. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signs a bill banning trans healthcare and drag shows amid a worsening climate for trans people in the U.S. and an authoritarian trend in the GOP. This is I think all of our audience will know that the United States is currently very much in the swing of enacting a trans genocide, and this is just certainly a part of it. So the governor Lee of Tennessee signed a bill making it illegal for doctors to provide gender-affirming healthcare in his state, and classified any business where employees dress in clothing not corresponding to their birth sex as quote-unquote adult businesses, effectively criminalizing trans people's presence around children in any professional capacity. So legal pushback is expected to this absurd bill, but this comes amid like a whole wave of anti-trans legislation in these red states, and there's really nothing that Biden's really doing about it. He's just sitting on his ass and just I guess, what is he doing? Like, really, what is Biden doing? Does anyone know?
I'll tell you what he's not doing.
Dollars over to Ukraine.
Yeah, I can tell you what he's not doing. Malarkey.
That's true.
Thank goodness for that. Yeah,
malarkey-less.
So Minnesota also, however, has introduced a bill recently, which if passed would make it into a trans sanctuary state, which protects anyone within it from prosecution under anti-trans laws from other states. So if you didn't know, this is also happening in America, where because there is a trans genocide being very, very much enacted in some states, other states are now serving as these trans sanctuaries, which, by the way, just means that you won't be actively persecuted by the state for being trans. Like it's not actually like there's no violence against trans people in a trans sanctuary state. It's just the state's not actively trying to like hunt down trans people. So
I think it's an interesting one where like the extreme use of federal versus state law is increasingly driving towards some kind of, you know, balkanization of the United States, right? Because like even if the federal government continues to exist and continues to have sovereignty, it's like with one president in, all of these states are doing things that fit with the other party's agenda, and that president can't stop them. And then the other president comes in, and all the other states are doing something that doesn't fit with their, you know, counters that, and they can't stop them, right? And so it's like Minnesota and say Tennessee will be these kind of, you know, vastly different worlds.
Yeah. Oh, here's one last part of the story, because we do have a lot of stuff to get through. The anti-trans lawmaking fits in with the broader pattern of authoritarian drifts in the GOP in recent years that many are describing as fascist, which is very true. In a similar vein, a new Florida GOP law will require, this is ridiculous, internet bloggers who write about the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, and other Florida officials. They're making internet bloggers register with the state office and file regular reports or face $25 a day in fines.
Fucking ridiculous.
These are the free speech people, by the way.
Microblogging,
for the record, these are the free speech people.
If this covers posting, will this cover?
Yeah, well,
posting?
Twitter is officially a microblogging website. So, like, if you have a big enough platform on Twitter, will you have to register your tweets? Like, bizarre.
It is extremely bizarre.
Anyways, Mule, do you want to tell us about Tunisia?
Oh my gosh, yes. So we were talking about Tunisia last week. Tim was telling us about a story whereby hang on a second, it's definitely Mule Day. The president was pulling some shit and the unions were just being like, no, this is bollocks. And this is just basically an update on that, I think. So yeah, this is from the 3rd. So yeah, this is from this week. This is a piece from midweek. And basically thousands of people have marched through Tunisia's capital, Tunis, this week in a protest coordinated by the UGTT labor union in response to arrests of prominent opponents of Tunisian President Kais Saied.
And the prominent opponents aren't just like, you know, like politicians or anything. They're like civilians and journalists and just anyone that's kind of been caught talking shit. So
yeah, just like guys, a senior union official was detained last month for organizing a strike by highway toll booth operators. So again, like Tim said, it's just union officials, like, you know, people who are like tangentially related to unions or they work in unions. They're part of the structure of unions and stuff like that. So yeah, very like normal running of a country that he's doing. In February, Saeed ordered officials to take quote unquote urgent measures to tackle irregular migration. Sound familiar? Claiming without evidence that a quote unquote criminal plot was underway to change Tunisia's demographic makeup. Saeed has claimed that migrants are responsible for most of the crime in Tunisia. So this is just exported colonialist imperial core walled world stuff, right? And it's kind of, you know, it's horrific that this is something that, you know, a country in the, I guess Tunisia, like this Kais Saied guy is probably, you know, wanting to stay in favor with, you know, the IMF and you know, imperial core countries and stuff like that. So that's possibly why he's being such a piece of shit. And I mean,
I'd put part of it just like the collapse of the current power structures, because I think the two things that we're going to see coming out of that are fascist states and socialist states. Really.
Yeah, socialism or barbarism.
That's the one.
That's literally
But he's been consolidating power, and he's been like giving, you know, like basically kind of collapsing everything around him and like kind of creating basically like kind of like an authoritarian fascist kind of situation over there. So it's like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
pretty fucking grim, right?
The base thing about this, though, is that the UGTT has condemned the president's utterances, saying that Tunisia is a country of tolerance, no to racism. Chief Taboubi told the protesters.
Yeah, UGTT are like huge, and they have like they're probably the one group that has like the biggest kind of like, I guess, like the biggest presence and kind of like public goodwill that is kind of like pushing back on him as well. And like a lot of the stuff that he's doing is deliberately to undermine unions and things, because he knows that's kind of, those are a threat. So
of course,
so it is awesome to see UGTT like leadership like being very vocal about this, because they, it's like they know that they could just get grabbed from their homes and stuff.
Totally. And I mean, that's another thing that we'll see about the coming collapse of imperialism, right, is that if the main faction that opposes a hyper fascist like world leader who want to overthrow them are themselves like the organized working class, it's actually really hard then for the CIA to do their shit, where
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the next news story is for Tim. Tim, tell us about the UN summit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the UN had a little summit. What was it? It was like ridiculously named. Well, I mean, it's like, it's just like kind of like a bit on the nose, right? It was like, what was it called? It was like it's like the UN least developed countries meeting that was in Doha. But so that just happened just the other week, and so I'm so bad at pronouncing like French stuff or whatever. But Faustin Touadéra, I don't know, president of the Central African Republic, told UN officials at the summit this week that, so this is for least developed countries, right? And he said his resource-rich nation was not poor, but rather was being looted by Western powers. And this is like, something we've talked a lot about in regards to like the IMF and a lot of other like, even just like the way that like France has claims a kind of historic debt to Haiti and things like that, and this is classic like this is classic Lenin, this is classic like neo-colonialism kind of shit right here, right? So the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that there can't be any more excuses for not providing aid to these countries, and called for $500 million for social and economic transformation after attacking the predatory loans given to poor nations by international banks. So this is the UN Secretary General, what they say, making an attack against like the IMF and others. But foreign aid isn't like, it's not the IMF gives loans which have like really strict conditions and things, and it often means the countries have to enforce like austerity measures and stuff on their citizens.
A point of information on this: the IMF must be destroyed at all costs.
Yes, and then so foreign aid isn't a loan, but it's still kind of like it's not just like free money, there's like a lot of like conditions and stuff like that, and also it kind of like I mean, there's like still a lot of bullshit that's kind of attached to it.
I'm time conscious, but also I'll try and be brief. But for example, foreign aid in America often involves like, because America grows so much fucking corn, they send a ton of corn to other countries, and then like the people who would grow similar crops or those crops in those countries literally just can't sell it, because like America insists you have to take our foreign aid. It's a present, it's aid, and it's like it's actually tanking their economies.
This has happened a bunch of times all over the world. But so what is it, what do we got here? The notes here, it's like this is foreign aid is a core feature of capitalist imperialism described by homeboy Vladimir Lenin. It's the export of capital from the imperial core to the imperial periphery. True freedoms for countries like the Central African Republic may only come with the abolition of imperialist relations. So
sometimes you can really tell when I wrote the notes on the news article.
So the UN's website describing these countries most exploited by imperialism says the world's least developed countries are in a race against time to deliver the sustainable development goals by 2030. The remaining years need to usher in a new global partnership to ensure these 46 countries benefit from social, economic, and environmental development. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, whose country of 170 million is scheduled to graduate out of LDC status. So that's when you're no longer on the list of least developed countries. Said poorer nations deserve certainty over financing for development and climate. The international community must renew its commitment for real structural transformation in LDCs, Hasina says. So, yeah, I mean, for us, I don't think anyone here would say that, like foreign aid and, like the IMF and all that is a pathway to structural transformation, LDCs. I'm not sure exactly what Hasina said, but it's what Hasina means by that. But I'm pretty sure that considering what has happened in like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan recently and stuff, I don't think anyone is very anyone's keen for any more IMF loans anytime soon. But Soph, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's been going on over there?
Yeah, sure. I have this story. It's titled "Brain-Rotted UK TERF Uses National Press to Spread Anti-Trans Fear-Mongering, Backfires Hilariously." I'm just going to read from the notes. I don't know a lot about this one. So Ruby Sampson, 22, a Tory councillor for Cockfosters Ward, wrote an absurd piece in the Daily Mail last week, alleging that a trans woman she had met in a pub bathroom had said to her after discussion of the poor quality of the hand dryer, "I'll wipe my hands on my penis." The article, as unbelievable and ridiculous as it was to everyone who heard about it, was nonetheless uncritically published in the Daily Mail and republished in the Evening Standard, demonstrating the craven willingness to uphold bigotry in the British press. Unfortunately for Miss Sampson and the Daily Mail, the trans woman that she encountered turned out to be Sophie from Mars, prominent activist and essayist. I don't know her, but she sounds hot, who was able to use her social media platform to correct the record that she had actually said, "I'll wipe my hands on my jeans." The original article has come under fire for not only being unbelievable, but also trying to paint trans women as sexual predators, while at the same time engaging in a fascination with trans women's bodies that clearly constitutes sexual harassment. Sophie has since been interviewed in Rolling Stone and on the Owen Jones show, as well as writing an article about the experience. Jess Thompson from Comrades of the Show Trans Safety Network also penned an excellent breakdown of the situation. I recommend people check it out. Trans Safety Network just revamped their website, so shout out to them and their cool new site. Reached out to by several different journalistic outlets now. Miss Sampson has declined to comment.
I know her, by the way. I know Sophie from Mars.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like she's a friend of mine, so I could see if she wants to hop on the show sometime.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Actually, we should totally speak to her.
Yeah.
You know the penis woman? Wow.
I know the penis woman. Yeah.
I'm just like losing it. I didn't even notice that that Ruby Sampson was a Tory councillor for Cockfosters Ward.
Yeah.
I just highlighted that in the
special,
notes.
yeah.
It's penises all the way down.
She's got it on the brain. Mule, do you want to tell us some more UK news?
I will tell you about the UK news of basically this is Rishi Sunak, or as I've started calling him, Pissy Poo Pants. Vowing to end asylum claims from. Oh, actually, I've just realized the entire stream didn't hear me because I'm muted, and so they missed my amazing joke.
Oh my god!
So one on the stream.
This is. Can I preface this by saying this is a serious stream for adults?
It's a serious stream for adults.
We're professionals.
Serious podcast for adults. Everyone on the podcast heard that naturally. But everyone on the stream is going to have to wait now, because if I try that again, it won't be as funny.
I think it's good that we should stretch this out even longer because we have so much time.
We should be doing that.
We do have so much time.
This is about Rishi Sunak. He's vowing to end asylum claims from small boat arrivals. This is fucking disgusting. Migrants already have some of the worst times in trying to seek asylum in the UK. Not only do they have to basically be put in internment camps as soon as they arrive, but if they even get rehoused, it is such a nightmare. And the language barriers in this country, and I know this firsthand from the work that I do with GMTU. Like I said, this week, I went through the entire list of people who'd asked us for help. A couple of them were people who can't speak English. and they've had no help trying to like, actually find translators that they could call when they need to speak to certain people, and so people can speak to them on their behalf. It's really, really difficult for them to actually settle in the UK as it is, and taking away the ability to claim asylum from small boat arrivals. So we're talking about people who are so desperate that they will simply, try and even build a boat sometimes, just like not even coming in on a proper boat. The image here that we're showing you is like, these guys have got hold of like a pretty decent dinghy from somewhere. Maybe even this is from the RNLI, who are in the picture, who save these guys who were like floating in the channel and stuff. So but some of the times they don't even have stuff like this. Like some of the times they're coming in on fucking makeshift rafts. Yeah. So that's so important to remember, like just how fucking horrific this is. And of course they're going to try and send them to Rwanda, which is something that they sort of I guess teased earlier in at the back end of last year, and he's just basically said that they will just not be granted asylum. Like this, it's just not happening. There's no way for them to even try and get in the system whatsoever. And the thing is that what whoever's wrote this in the show notes says is that this won't stop the arrival of migrants. It won't. It literally won't stop it. It will just mean that these people will get to the UK. They probably won't hear the stories that, oh, if you go to the UK, they'll catch you and they'll put you on a plane and they'll fly you to Rwanda. They'll either not believe that, because let's face it, it's so absurd, or they'll be like, you know what? I'm just going to try anyway, because they've got nothing to fucking lose. You know what I mean? So this is it. So Home Secretary Suella Braverman, who will introduce the new laws, said the only route to the UK will be a safe and legal route, bearing in mind that there are no safe and legal routes for migrants to get into the UK. Like, this is why they're coming on boats, So yeah, it's just literally ridiculous. So anyway, there's that. Fuck the UK. It should be abolished. That's that. And Kira, you are our next story.
Yes. So a Black trans woman has been murdered in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is in Wisconsin in America, if you didn't know. Her name is Cache B. Henderson, 31 years old. Firefighters discovered Cache's body when they were responding to a fire that had been set in her apartment unit. And additionally, adding on to this horrific act, Cache was misgendered in the media and in police reports. Cache's death is at least the 6th violent killing of a trans person in Milwaukee in 2023, as well as the 3rd killing of a Black transgender woman in Milwaukee in the past 9 months. Okay, actually, I'm not sure if the 6th violent killing of a trans person in Milwaukee per se, I'll have to double check on that, but it's definitely the 3rd killing of a Black trans woman in Milwaukee in just the past 9 months. So it's horrific.
So it could be like, like trans people that aren't trans women, like trans men or
right.
I believe over 40 trans women have been killed so far in 2023.
Okay, well,
like
it's probably
March,
in Milwaukee then.
It's like, it's fucking wild.
Yeah. So just to be clear, when we're saying this is at least, it's because so many trans deaths or trans murders go unreported or misreported. For instance, like the dead naming that occurs to trans people to obscure their actual existence as trans.
Because it's the name they'll say when you're dead.
That's right. Right. A vigil honored Cache, as well as 2 other Black transgender women that were murdered in Milwaukee in the last 9 months. And their names were Brazil Johnson and Maya Allen. Cache is described as a bubbly spirit with a down-to-earth, tell-it-like-it-is personality who was as beautiful as can be inside and out. Diverse and Resilient is an LGBTQ plus nonprofit in Wisconsin, and they wrote in a post that Cache was a loved and valued member of our community. Many of us are mourning today. And they further said this, and I wanted to read their statement verbatim because I thought it was great. While we are filled with grief, we are also filled with anger. Black trans women continue to be at the highest risks for homicide within the LGBTQ community. The continued attacks by right-wing elected officials to remove the safety and rights for trans people are causing an increase in vitriol and hatred toward people of trans experience. We call for an immediate halt to the hateful rhetoric and the dangerous bills that are written as a result of transphobia and lies. And I just want to make it clear that the only reason I'm aware of this story is because I saw posts on Twitter from Black trans women who were expressing their very justified frustration that no one seemed to care about Cachet's murder. And this is in comparison to Breonna Jay's murder recently, how there was absolutely lots of publicity surrounding it, horrific as it was. I don't want to ever diminish that, but the reactions that we have and the means to which this information is disseminated and the focus that we put on, where we put our focus, it fucking matters. So I wanted to make sure that
as much as it was driven by like Breonna Jay being a child and like her having some like community presence, there are Black trans women killed constantly, and we treat it like it's just a normal feature of life when it shouldn't be happening.
Especially when so many are being murdered. But I wanted to make sure that we absolutely were able to at least be like, not part of the problem here to like actually we need to, and when I say we, I mean I'm talking to white people right now. We need to fucking do better. We absolutely need to fucking do better. Like what I was seeing on Twitter, it was just it's really not okay for us to not be putting any focus on this or all the numerous other Black trans women being murdered.
I've also spoken to like lots of Black men before on like, and I know this might sound silly, but on Grindr, I've met Black men and stuff like that in the past, and they've said to me that like the most, racism that they experience is from the LGBTQ plus community, and that is fucking sad. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think just the white LGBTQ plus community as a whole, like, needs to sort
has a serious racism problem.
It does.
It's like, it's a lot of our audience might be already familiar with like the concept of like there's like misogyny, and then there's like misogynoir, and then trans misogyny and trans misogynoir. But I think that's like something, if you're, because I mean like like obviously none of us are Black, we can't speak to those experiences and stuff, but might be worthwhile if you like any of our listeners want to kind of like learn more about that, to make note of those kind of terms, because it definitely was like something that I didn't think too much about, but it's like obviously like it makes sense when you think about how the world works and the kind of like the way that oppression works and all this kind of stuff like that there is like there are a lot of people that are speaking specifically about their experiences as like like Black trans people, and this is like also as opposed to being like like brown trans people or like indigenous trans people, Asian trans people, or whatever like that. Like all these people have like very different kind of experiences, and like I feel like there's a lot of stuff that just kind of gets like for like Black trans women, it's kind of just like it's so easy for people just to say or just to think like, oh, that's just another just another Black person from like from a shitty neighborhood, just another person just did, and that happens all the time there, sort of thing like that. It's like it's fucked up. That's literally that's the thought process that a lot of people have about this, and it's like it's fucking wild, and it's like like Kira was saying, it's like everyone needs to do better to kind of like I guess like combat that stuff. So I would say
I want to say one more thing, if just to say it. I think what we're talking about right now, first of all, none of us are Black. I just want to make that very clear. To warrant a kind of conversation like this, we absolutely need to platform Black people for this. And I do think there is absolutely a need to have a further conversation. What we're talking about right now is not even remotely enough. It's not remotely, it's scratching the surface of the surface, right? So just to put that out there, there's much more conversation to be had about this, and education.
Go
ahead, Sophie.
I was just gonna say I remember reading Malcolm X's biography and him pointing out like the culture of like not anonymous sex, but like you know, marginalized sex that like was kept from the general public, where like obviously we're kind of familiar with the idea of like white men cruising for black women and engaging in sort of sex tourism with the black community. But also he pointed out that like, well, he was just describing his experiences that a lot of white women would be like seeking black men at the same time, because like there is this huge power dynamic there. And like it's been one of the most informative things for me thinking about like white feminism, is that like a lot of white women think that they are well, you know, we're marginalized as women, so obviously we must be fine, like we can't be doing anything wrong. And then like, you know, yeah, you'll see stuff like that, like phenomena that like are massively recurring of like white women treating black men as lesser. And like more recently, like, you know, I read that a few years ago, but you know, more recently I have heard like white trans women who I'm in community with talking about like black men they sleep with in really disgusting ways. And I'm just like, this is the exact same shit, and you just think that you're exempt from it because you're trans, and that's ridiculous.
And it's the same kind of like brainworms that you know, it's like the turf thing as well, you know, where it's like they believe that, you know, like, oh, like, you know, because we're women, we are exploited in this way, and this means that this, you know, like we're kind of like, this is our, you know, like, would they believe that, you know, like you know, like someone that has another kind of experience where they are oppressed in a different way or whatever like that is not equal to their own, as opposed to just understanding that there are many different kinds of oppression and they all kind of like crisscross over in a bunch of different ways. But and I think that's probably why all those groups kind of like have so much in common. But
but overall, we can just do better, because like solidarity is the only way out of everyone's oppression.
It's true. Well, with that, we have completed the news. Well done, everyone. You made it through. It was pretty rough this week, so we're very sorry if there wasn't much hopium for you there. I guarantee there will be hopium out there for you. I would like to make a personal recommendation to check out Positive Leftist News, because that just came out for March this week, and I think Big Villainous is hosting it this month.
Oh, nice.
And if you're able to gaze upon our show at the moment, whether live or on YouTube or on Patreon, gaze upon Sophie. That will certainly cheer you up. Look how cute she is.
Gaze upon Kira and Tim and Mule. We're all very attractive people, and we know that's definitely true because Conrad's ex-wife apparently has informed us. Is the guest ready to come in? I have a little intro.
The guest is ready to come in.
Fantastic. So in that case, here's a little bit of writing I did this week. In their track Run, Colorado rap rock band Flowbots sung "If the Sun Will Rise Even One More Time, So Will I." Subaltern ideas, phrases, and slogans like this have been a part of revolutionary art for as long as workers have struggled, with obvious classics such as Solidarity Forever and Pete Seeger's Which Side Are You On, sung at leftist rallies for decades now. Music can also be used to describe the shape of the struggle in ways that are concise and memorable. For example, the lyrics that Boots Riley's band The Coup put in their most popular track, Guillotine. They got the TV, we got the truth, they own the judges, and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters, they got the bombs, and we got the guillotine. But music isn't just to inspire and inform. The ability of art to match a huge range of human emotion means that artists can take all kinds of approaches to the same subject. Today, we're joined by Alasdair from Red and Anarchist black metal band Ashenspire to talk about how they use black metal to get people to connect on an emotional level to the revolution, or as Flowbots puts it, compassion as fast as you can, go time.
Hell yeah. Welcome in, Alasdair. How's it going?
I'm not bad, thanks. How's everyone else?
Good. What are you drinking? What's in the cup?
I'm drinking Lapsang Souchong.
Oh,
very nice. I have a perfume that smells like Lapsang Souchong.
It's a tea.
Is it cigarettes?
Cigarettes.
I don't even know what that is.
Let's go.
It's like, is that like I didn't even know what language that is.
Yeah,
it's like a smoky Chinese tea.
Like a black tea kind of situation.
Yeah. But like the really nice stuff is like, I'm actually at a campfire. I'm actually
it is
nice.
Super nice. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and Ashenspire, and introduce yourself.
Yeah, no worries. So I'm Alasdair. I am a musician and like artist. I'm also a teacher. I'm a high school teacher, and I've been doing music for I mean, a really long time, but I've been in and out of various different bands since about 2012. And like Ashenspire is kind of like been my major thrust since about 2013. And for a long time, it's been a kind of slow burn, like a background thing, or like an important creative outlet, but really, you know, not a huge component of my life, because we have to sell our labor to survive. But over and like, so I've like been on a variety of different albums by different bands. Ashenspire has an album from like 2017, which is about addressing some of the contradictions that are exposed by Britain's relationship with its imperial history. And that I you know, I'm pleased with that record. But this year, like last year, like things kind of exploded a lot more when we released our second record, which is called Hostile Architecture, which is how most people know us, which is kind of dealing more with neoliberalism and the basically starting from a level of like, what are the symptoms of the late capitalist system that we found ourselves in, and then, you know, working back from that to like the using those as like metaphors for like the central contradictions, and trying to draw attention to those things in ways that maybe people either haven't thought about before, or like certainly like in the metal sphere, maybe they haven't thought about before.
Which are also, like, to say this early on, like, some of the most metal things you could be singing about, like fucking taking a focus on, like, you know, the Grenfell fire, which is like a big feature of Hostile Architecture, is like, you know, if people need inspiration for black metal albums, I feel like you've latched onto one of the best ones.
We were talking about this at the shop recently, about how like metal has this preoccupation with things that are actually like really ridiculous, when there is like, you know, like you see like, you know, like so many bands just focusing on things that are like, you know, they're like, oh, this is really like grim and metal to like sing about like fucking, you know, like a fantasy winter realm or some shit like that. And it's like,
what if there was a goblin and everything who was like sad?
That. Yeah, exactly. A sad goblin, you know. But it's just like, I feel like it's infinitely more grim, more like metal, to like not just be like talking about like these, you know, man-made horrors beyond our comprehension that actually exist under capitalism, but also to be kind of like speaking truth to power in that way. I feel like is like, you know, like that's kind of a lot more metal than just being like, you know, like you get all these like very serious like war metal dudes and stuff, and it's like, you just think about Warhammer, and it's like, okay, that's fun, but it's like, you know, they're all like very serious about it. It's like, this is very unserious.
There is at least one metal band that sings about Warhammer that is like
a bolt thrower.
Bolt thrower, yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, but also bolt thrower fight Nazis at the shows. So,
exactly.
You know, like,
exactly.
It's really funny as well to me, because like a lot of older metal bands did have some like quite based sort of songs, like every now and then. I think it's probably like less popular to like have a sort of political opinion if you were a metal band back then, but they still had them anyway, because I think it was important to be in you know, metalheads. Like, for example, Motorhead had a tune called Eat the Rich, and who else? Running Wild had their tune Conquistadors, which is about basically saying how like the fucking conquistadors were not heroes, they were stealing people's gold and shit, and murdering and raping and all that. So it's wild to me that, you know, and then like things got even more intense when we got into the 90s with like Rage Against the Machine. It just for me, like, it made no sense at all that the metal bands stopped singing about bass stuff, and in fact just sung about less bass stuff, basically.
Well, I mean, it's like, I think it's always been a thing to kind of do both, but I think that a lot of the time the politics is maybe like lost on a lot of people. Like, I remember this is a while back now, having some guy, I wrote something about metal and politics on Twitter, and some guy replied saying that the best metal bands, like, you know, keep their politics outside of it. And then in his like photo, he was wearing a Napalm Death t-shirt. It's like Napalm Death are like a very, very political, like explicitly leftist grindcore band that are like, you know, like legends and stuff, but all of their shit is like very base, you know. And it's just like, no, mate, it's like it's always there. So you just didn't understand it, you know. Like, anyway,
I think like it's treated as a form of escapism for a great many people, and they feel threatened by like anything meaningful entering that space. I think that's the major reason why don't. It's the same with like it's the same thing as gamers, right? Really, like keep politics out of video games because we don't want to think about anything.
Have you come across any of that with your sort of like fans or listeners at all?
Our fans are like pretty much on board for what we're doing. I think
Ashenspire fans are extremely base chads, actually, Mule. So
right.
Cool.
I heard that. Nice shirt, by the way.
Thanks.
Like, God, what were we saying?
Escapism.
Our fan base, are, I think, the sort of people who are primed for this sort of music to begin with. People looking desperately for a something quite transgressive in that sphere. And it's not like we've been saying, it's not like there isn't left-wing metal music, and it's not like there isn't quite like aggressively political metal music, but I think especially in like extreme metal, it's actually quite rare, and like people who are into extreme metal tend to be quite conservative, or they're at least like up for accepting the fact that Nazis make the kind of music they like.
Like
the people who are interested in the kind of music we make are usually not the sort of people who like that kind of music, because our music is quite weird, like it's quite fucked up, and like
there's like a jazz fusion black metal thing going on. It's
we can't have that. God, that's just too weird. But like they like music. Like I think like a lot of extreme metal is kind of it's almost a misnomer, really, because a lot of it is like something that was extreme in like 1992.
This is just like, you know, it's like so many people these days that are putting out like a record and it'll be like, this is the, you know, like the most brutal, the heaviest thing that you've ever heard or whatever, and it's like, it just sounds like the first ever, you know, Sepultura release, like, you know, and it's kind of like this was like what, like 1986 or something like that, and you're still releasing on tapes and stuff like this. Like you're not pushing anything here, you know, like this isn't shocking, this isn't extreme, you know, this is and
I think that
go ahead,
go on, Alasdair.
No you
Okay. So I've mentioned this on the show a few times recently, but I recently read Mark Fisher's Post-Capitalist Desire, and I feel like something in that really relates to what we're saying here, and this is why I wrote the intro like I did, about like art allows us to take different approaches to the same topic, right? And it's like Fisher is broadly saying that like capitalism has done a really good job of capturing all of our desires and all of our feeling and everything. And so when we're talking about escapism into art, right, whether it's video games or movies or books or black metal, right, it's like if the feeling that someone like really wants to express and experience through art is like anger, for example, right, like they might seek out pieces of like types of art that they feel like expresses that, but they want to do it in a way where it's just this commodity consumption thing. They want to just like consume anger as an art form, and then like you're saying, like they don't want to have to think about anything. But it's like it's a very strange kind of double bluff going on, where like they have anger, they want to express the anger, they want to have a space to feel the anger, but then like if you're saying, hey, here's a thing to get angry about, they're like, no, that's not what I want. I don't want to be angry. I just want to I just want to buy angry. You know, I just want to consume angry.
Pure catharsis.
Consumer identity.
Yeah.
The angry guy. Yeah.
As I was like preparing for the show, it's funny, like you used the phrase like capital captures our desires for profit. And Sophie and we talked about Anti-Oedipus, Deleuze and Guattari. A while ago, and like that's like the major thrust of that, which is something we'll maybe get into later. But it taps into some of like the some of why I think like hostile architecture is a success in terms of a piece of like political art in this sphere, is that it's like it's not like what's come before it. There's a number of like odd like sonic touchstones, and it obviously, like any piece of art, is influenced by many things, but like there's this like term I wrote down, like commercialization is the rear guard of art. So like as soon like all of these things that have been done before, you know, it's great that like there's two things really you should be doing when you're making art. One is like doing something something new, and the other is having fun, and hopefully you can have both of those. But like if something's been done before and then it's done again without much iteration on the formula, it is a product. It is for consumption. And that's not to say I don't love a bunch of like retro stuff. And we'll probably, given that Mark Fisher's already come up, we'll probably talk about nostalgia later as well.
Right.
But like, like truly revolutionary art has to like transgress the borders of the known.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's like you're saying like something's popular and then it's repeated and then it's commodified, but I mean there's a prefiguration as well, because like so many or all the avenues we have to make art are commercial now, right? Like we are really told that if you're not using your time for something that will make you money, it's a waste of your time.
It's a side hustle now.
Well, actually, this is like a massive like personal anxiety of mine. Like I've been thinking about this a lot, is that like in that sense of like revolutionary art, hostile architecture works the first time you hear it, or like in the instant of it's being made, or the instant of experiencing it. But every moment after that, it's like, and I don't know, like I've not fully formulated my thoughts on this, but like it becomes work, it becomes something to be consumed, it becomes this commodity, and that's like I'm really worried about like, will this music that we've created, that we've tried to make as revolutionary as possible, will people like sate their need for change? Will they sate their need for revolution by consuming it?
That's another big Mark Fisher thing there, right? You know,
totally.
That, people will kind of like confuse their kind of consumption of radical materials, or you know, whatever, as
the revolutionary consumer demographic. You
just you put on some Ashenspire and then you just, you know, that's enough activism for today.
But I think that the answer to that is in the conversation we were just having, which is like people wouldn't actually need, like there would be no backlash by any consumer to be there being politics in my art if it didn't do something, because inherently there is a call to action that they are uncomfortable with in art they can identify as political. And so it's like, even if it is commodified, it remaining, I think that the real struggle is not in it not being commodified, but in it remaining political post commodification. To say it concisely, it's what Lenin said, right? The last capitalist we redacted will be the one who sells us Minecraft. there, for example, I brought up the Coup as well in the introduction, and like the Coup are a band I listen to like a lot of on repeat as well. So just, you know, speaking of like experiencing the same tracks over, and like one of their less well-known ones, Magic Clap, is fantastic because like the rhythm of it that they are selling you as being the Magic Clap is literally a protest chant rhythm. It's right, so it's like they're telling you there's this magic clap rhythm that makes things happen and gets things done. And it's kind of like, yeah, that isn't a lesson that I need like telling over and over again, but like there's still something I think very powerful in like, I don't know, I'm going somewhere, I'm on my way somewhere, and this rhythm comes in you know, in my earphones, and I'm like, that's the feeling that I'm feeling is that's driving like what I'm doing and what I'm getting up to. And I think that's something, you know. It's also like, to try to talk about art in utilitarian terms is like maybe, you know, is maybe the bit about like dissecting the frog. No one's that interested in the frog dies or whatever. But I mean, I think it's interesting, but I also think that like we might be getting into like too utilitarian a place when we think that way, right?
Yeah, you're right. Totally.
Sophie is often right, so I just like to just absorb it and be like, yes, Sophie.
When I say getting too utilitarian, I'm saying like we can't expect art on its own to make everything happen.
Exactly right.
The revolution happen, right? But it still plays an essential role. I did want to bring up a book I read by Jay Jordan and Isabel Fremeau, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, who squatted the ZAD and reclaimed it. They wrote this book, We Are Nature Defending Itself, and they made a very powerful point in that, which was much less to do with kind of what you're doing, Alasdair, but like you might still have some thoughts on it, because they were talking about artists who make a very big show of, and often make a lot of money off of, like being like, my art is about migrant channel crossings, or my art is about you know, I've choreographed this dance piece to teach you about like how hard it is for victims of FGM or something. And it's like their point is like, you could be using the same skills when you created like an interactive art installation that like people go around and explore or whatever. You could have created, you know, the exact same skills could have created some kind of like huge like obstacle to police entry in the ZAD or whatever. You could have used your choreography skills to choreograph how people resist at a protest. Like that was something I was going to actually bring up about the counter demo I was at the other day. Like there are thoughts to be had about this, like how people move and stuff. It's because I read the book, because when I first read the book I was like, choreography at protests, does that make sense? But then actually like my sister was saying that she'd been at an immigration raid resistance, and when the police tried to push on the crowd of resistors, she like was telling people about like mosh pit tactics, of like,
when someone falls, you pick them up.
I mean, that was essential, and that was what the crowd was doing. But she was also like sharing important stuff to do with like how people can form like human walls that like the cops can't possibly push down by like relying on each other. And I was thinking, because I was at this demo and I was sharing the exact same stuff she said to me, I was like, oh, this is actually like choreography. This is actually like showing people how to move a crowd as one body, and that's really cool. What was I going to say about? Fuck, I had a thing. It's so gone. Anyway, using those skills towards actual like things that are directly changing the thing, rather than just you know, creating art that raises awareness, as it were. Like there's an interesting thought.
It's it is interesting because you know, like when you seriously like consider like, you know, like the groups of people that kind of like often will like partake in those things and stuff, you do see people with a diverse array of skills, you know, and like that's something that we've always like, you know, talked about, is that, you know, like there's kind of like a place for everyone in, you know, like I guess like radical or like revolutionary organizations and organizing and stuff like that. And yeah, it does feel like I've definitely felt like really, you know, like at kind of like, I guess like more like liberal side of like political activism kind of art spaces and music spaces and stuff like that, where it's just kind of like, you know, like what's going on here? Like what's coming out of this? It reminds me, I was just talking about this earlier, actually. A friend of mine, this is like tangentially related. He's a really angry guy. He's a tattooist, and he went to like a quiet retreat to learn how to and a lot of his anger comes from, you know, the way of the world sort of thing. Went to this quiet retreat, and they were all sitting down in silence, meditating, and like the instructor was like talking about how they need to like just you know, like kind of accept that they can't change the world and shit like that. And he got kicked out because he was like, there are 60 people in this room, all in the prime of their lives, and they, you know, surely between us we could do something, you know. And they were just like, sorry man, you're just fucking harshing the vibes. Get out of here.
Oh my god.
And like that's kind of like how I feel about a lot of that stuff. You know, it's just kind of like, you know, like really, like is this the best we could do? Could we be you know, could we be meditating on this?
Like I've seen a lot of people refer to our record as like being quite depressing or like nihilistic, which is really bizarre to me, because it's, to me it's anything but. Like it's like if we'd given up, I would have, I don't know, done something like completely different. Like
go and work in a fintech startup in Canary Wharf. You don't have to fucking if you give up, you don't make art.
Exactly. There are lots of people who have given up who do make art, but that it's not necessarily art that gets people doing. But like, yeah, like it was interesting that, like, I think that's a projection. That like, oh, like we're highlighting that things are really bad. This must be like a really miserable, like depressed, like crumbling psyche. Which is like definitely not the goal anyway. It makes me quite sad that really that's like what some people have gotten from it. But then, you know, equally you get quite a lot of people who are like, this album makes me want to quit my job.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bit of a strange one, like doomerism. I'm currently working on a big project to do with doomerism, so I have a lot of thoughts about it. And like in the researching of it, I obviously had to read a lot of stuff from people who are just really depressed and have kind of given up about the climate crisis, and have just like all they will say is like, this is how bad it's going to get, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's quite funny how a lot of those people will. Okay, I said I had a lot of thoughts about it, and now all the thoughts are just like trying to jam through the door too fast, and I'm just like right. So it was depressing me a bit reading all this stuff, and then I kind of came out the other side of it with the initial point I was trying to make when I came to the project, like kind of pulled me out of it, which was like, I think that people who are doomers, people who are depressed by how bad things are, it's really that they're looking at how much would need to be done for it to get better, and they think, I can't do that, so there's nothing we can do. And it's like, but we can do that is the thing. And like, you know, you'll read one of the big sources I've got for this is The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells, and like some of the closing words of the entire book are just like, I don't think that lists off a bunch of things, including a revolution, are going to be the thing that changed this. It'll be some combination of these things, and then we'll settle into like a middle place, because he's just like an uber centrist. He's just like, we'll settle into a middle place, and we'll probably have about 4 degrees of warming, and we're just going to have to live with that. And it's like he hasn't actually mentioned revolution throughout the rest of the entire book, and he's saying it in just like the last couple of pages, and he's just like, I don't think revolution is the thing that's going to solve it. And I'm just like, I don't think you've given serious thought to like what happens when the material conditions become unlivable, i.e. revolution like has to happen because people can't accept how things are, like they just can't stay alive. But yeah, I've come to view it kind of as like doomerism is almost like a stage. It's just like people go through this thing. They're like shit is so bad and I am angry and I want to do something, but I just feel like it's impossible. And it's not actually it's not that anything really changes emotionally often. Like, it's just that they accept, like, people generally are gonna start doing something, and I can be a small part of lots of people doing something, and that cures the paralysis of, like, I can't do it all myself. One of my favorite quotes from the Talmud says, "Do not let the grief of the world overwhelm you. You are not obligated to finish the work, nor are you free to abandon it." And I kind of think it's that, like, it's just that, right?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Go on, Alasdair, sorry.
I was going to say, like, it really strongly ties into, like, the central text that I honestly can't believe we haven't mentioned yet, of the album, which is capitalist realism, right?
Of course.
It's like and like part of that is like a symptom of, like, the feeling that everyone is like an individual agent in the world, and it takes rejecting capitalist realism in order to realize that you're a member of a broader community of people who can work together. But, like, it's a huge amount of work to, like, and time and patience with people to, like, try and help them come to their own realization surrounding, like, you know, lifting that veil and letting them see the possibilities that surround them.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want to think that I'm like some kind of special guy either, because
you're my special guy.
No,
You're so special,
stop it. Right, because Sophie just had to say to me once, when I didn't even really know that much stuff, the stuff that I know now about revolution and all that, Sophie just had to say to me something along the lines of, it doesn't matter anyway, because, you know, you could just, like, not be a doomer, and that's great. And I was like, brilliant. And all of a sudden it was different for me, and I can't be just like a special guy, you know what I mean? I can't even remember what said, Soph, but, like, you know what I mean? It has to be like that for everybody. Like, it has to be, like, if someone just sort of explains it in the right way, and then if you are so mad that the world is going to shit and you want to do something about it, you will actually just be like, oh, right, yeah, I should do something about it. And then you go off and join a tenants union and get on the committee.
Yeah. Well, and that, you know, actually, that's like part of, I think, the role that people in spaces that are like gamers and like heavy metal, right? Like, we have a vital role in, like, taking that feeling, because there's a lot of that feeling amongst disenfranchised people of all kinds, but in these spaces, a lot of them are white men, and then trying to remind them that, like, fascism isn't the answer, because you know, it can, if you draw enough attention to how bad things are and the wrong person gets in the ear, it's like,
well, that's like the thing, right? I mean, that's like
water on an oil fire.
Yeah, there's so many cases of this, you know, like recently, like with a lot of COVID stuff, and people kind of seeing that everything sucks or whatever, but not actually having any kind of, like, cohesive ideology or any kind of like no understanding of, like, you know, class analysis or anything like that. So then they just immediately get sucked into, like, fascism or conspiratorial bullshit or whatever like that, you know. And it's just like it's a thing. It's like, you know, you see like a lot of, like, you know, metal dudes and shit, obviously skew towards, like, kind of white, I guess, like, middle class kind of dudes, or even, like, you know, like lower class, middle class kind of dudes or whatever, who it's like, like they do feel that, you know, like, society sucks or whatever, but they just they don't have the they don't have, I guess, like, the critical tools. They haven't yet got the tools to actually understand why it is, you know. So they're just like,
I mean, like, a lot of speaking from my own experience, and I think for a lot of people in this, like, community's experience, like, that feeling comes from having felt disempowered earlier in life, right? Like, and a lot of people who are into weird shit get bullied a lot, like, in school and whatever. And I really think that the way the metal community is like really strongly inspired by that. Like, that whole experience of being the weird kid is, like, carried forward. And I think like it makes sense that you're then attracted to like forms of art that and like ideologies that reinforce that actually you're a super cool guy, like a really just the coolest guy actually.
Really, actually,
and
the
you know
Sigma
what?
male
And
base.
you know what? If you got yourself a sword and like just
fedora
posed in the woods, man, like, you know, that would be really powerful. That like, I mean, it just like on a basic level, it makes sense that like a lot of these guys turn towards an ideology that reinforces their position on the top of a hierarchy. But
I think that's interesting as well, you know, because like a lot of people also just ape the politics of the bands that they listen to, you know. So it's like that's people will like listen to Bertzum and then they'll be like, oh wow, you know, like this Varg guy's got a website, got some interesting ideas or whatever like that. And then it's like, you know, like you do in the music, obviously, like, you know, like a lot of that scene, you know, like even guys like Varg and you know, others from that kind of wave of black metal, they're like talking, you know, like talking about how they're like such outsiders and, you know, like or whatever. But then it's like, you know, this music that was their kind of like protest against like what they thought was like Christian hegemony, when it was like at the time they were all like from good families, like, you know, like their dads were paying their rent, all that kind of shit, in a time when Norway was the most secular it had ever been. And, you know, like they were kind of like, they were doing all right. They were just, you know, like kind of self-victimized, well, made themselves victims and then kind of,
well, it's that reactionary
politics
thing,
around
right?
that. Exactly. You know, it's like
which
is like really
like
funny.
Frank Miller, like being surrounded by like liberal and leftist artists, and then him thinking that he's like really, really rebelling by just being a fascist, basically. I want to bring back slightly to Alistair. You mentioned like me and you chatting over DMs about theory a little bit, because again, to bring it back to capitalist realism, we talked a little bit about that, and there's a shape of conversation that I've been appreciating recently where I'll say to another leftist about capitalist realism, like a lot of reactionary Fisher fans take it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism, and then they think, well, if everyone finds it easier to imagine the end of the world, then we're fucked and there's nothing we can do. But that's not the point. The point is that we're an imaginary like an imaginative trap, and that we have to get out of it. That's the whole point of what he's saying.
I've never heard that take. That's like that's really sad.
That's
man.
the thing.
Like,
they don't say it explicitly.
Are you not
but you can
extremely
observe
online
that's
like we are? Like extremely.
I mean, this is what I wanted to say was like a few years and kind of basically like shortly after Fisher's death, there were a lot of people who were the unfortunately, I think of these as the core Fisher stands, unfortunately, because they're reactionary leftists, and like they are really quite diehard in like only referencing Fisher and nothing else, even though like Fisher himself, like, you know, shouts out David Graeber, everybody drink, and then like, you know, other sources that like are much more clear cut, like, or much more tend to give people hope in revolutionary movements and whatever. Like, even though what he is saying is often quite depressing on the face of it, it's actually built off of a lot of other stuff and comes to the same conclusions as stuff that's much more hopeful. And a few years ago, when these like Fisher stands were like parading around this kind of nonsense, like I felt absolutely insane, because I was seeing them all saying, you know, not saying explicitly, but all implying the conclusion that they'd come to, that there's nothing we can do because of this imaginative problem. And now, you know, I have conversations with you and others that like it takes this same shape again and again, where I say Fisher stands seem to have come to this conclusion, and the person I'm talking to is like, yeah, and that's obviously wrong. And I'm like, it on the one part, it's that I, you know, was just exposed to some awful reactionary brainworm people, and I'm no longer, and I'm like talking to people who know how to read a book. But like, it's also that I think a lot of people have had time to chew over that thought and come to the conclusion that he was actually trying to get at, and actually understand it better with more time, which I think reinforces the thing about like disempowerment and then moving through it into something else. I think also like, yeah, I really hope that is the case with doomerism, and I really hope that like bringing people through to the conclusion of that thought, that like actually if we all act, we'll do something differently. I hope that that's the ticket, because like that, like I say, is my next big project. I think that's something to discuss about revolutionary art as well, because like ultimately I'm doing you know, critical analysis of politics and theory and philosophy and stuff, but like it's still an art form. I was thinking this too about I don't know if you've seen this, but Tim's produced some really fantastic videos. Where's Tim on the screen? He's down here. Tim down here on the stream.
Down here.
Hi 10, Tim.
Hey, you got it.
Tim's produced a couple of fantastic videos, like about a hypothetical cyberpunk dystopia where you might have to fight the cops, and some tactics that you could use in this hypothetical cyberpunk dystopia. And they're really good. Completely unimaginable.
Creative guy, Tim.
The imagination on him, it's amazing.
Talk about revolutionary art.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, is that like we're producing art, and it's like maybe the veil is kind of pulled off it a lot more than in other cases. But you know, in the case of Ashenspire, like the veil, so to speak, of the you know, disguise of the art around the radical ideas is really just the fact that it's music. It's not like you're not entirely explicit about what you're saying.
Yeah, you're like making Blue Velvet and we're doing hardcore porn. That's basically it, right? That's what's going on.
Well, now we've satisfied
I've been told that we're like too heavy-handed in some places. It's like, oh, I miss the poetry of like the first album. I'm like, no one understood what the first album was about, man. Like,
yeah,
like sometimes you just gotta say it.
I miss the poetry. Yeah, but like now that I'm saying Grenfell is burning again and again and again, people get what I mean by that. Like,
yeah. Well, I think that's the thing, and I think there's like, you know, like you don't want to leave space for being like misinterpreted. You know, like it's like if you get a message, then it's like, I always think of that. What was that fucking? It was like a quote or a tweet from someone that said, "I know writers that use subtext and they're all cowards."
It's drill,
it's like,
isn't it? It's like it's
drill. Yeah. It's someone like that.
It's Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Yes, so it is. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean,
it could be a drill tweet.
It could be
identical energy, honestly. Drill vibes.
Yeah.
It's very painful to me when there's a question in chat that I have lots of thoughts about, but it's to be held until the end. So I'm just like gonna sit here vibrating, waiting to like pitch in when that one comes around.
I mean, it's not. I don't know if you know this, Sophie, but we make the rules here. Like, there's no like Red Planet God that we take like orders from. Like, if you really want to answer a question now,
like God Mars,
yeah.
You know what, Kira, you're completely right.
God?
So let's talk about bourgeois art and the concept of high art and high culture. This will preempt a question that will come up at the end. But like, there's a strange thing where like different genres of art sometimes belong to the bourgeoisie or belong to the proletariat. In the USSR, for example, like theater, but especially like ballet, really belonged to the people. It was massively like the proletarian art form, and like that's something you can still see today. When I was in Armenia, we went to see like a production of Spartacus. It was fucking fantastic. You know, I think that like there's a distinction that people will kind of point to art forms that they are used to being fancier and belonging to high society and being what people call like high culture and high art, right? And they think this, like, they're like, can this be revolutionary? And the answer is like, yeah, any art can be revolutionary. It's just that if you live in a culture, you know, if you live in a society, in Britain, we unfortunately don't, we live in an economy, but if you do live in a society and that society has and that society I mean, look, it would be nice as fuck to live in a society. I wish. She's right.
Want to try it one day?
If you do live in a society and that society has like certain art forms like that have been really earmarked as belonging to the bourgeoisie, and you know, it's only like middle class and ruling class people who go to those like performances, then yeah, I would say those things are not places where you're going to find revolutionary potential. You'll often find some of the absolute like worst captured revolutionary potential, like we were talking about it before, the worst kind of commodified shit. I think a great example to talk about here would be Les Miserables, right? Where like it's massively popular with the middle class to go watch a musical about a revolution and worker struggle and uprisings that has all these lyrics in it that you would think, you know, if this were being sung by and for working class people, I actually don't know Les Mis, but you know,
I actually have some opinions about Les Mis.
I would love to hear them as someone who was forced to watch musicals as a child, and now I hate them. Please, Alasdair, continue.
Yes, it does have like a degree of it. A revolution is happening, sort of, in the musical, but like the musical
bourgeois revolution. Would you say?
Well, the musical does not portray it as like anything other than like, I don't know. I feel like it portrays it as like a fairly arbitrary disagreement.
Yeah, and it's like an annoyance in the background kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the conflict on the curtains, you know, like it's behind them. It's set dressing.
Exactly.
Like the revolutionaries are consistently portrayed as naive and foolish and idealistic and with no great like concrete ideas about what's going to happen. And you know, in fairness, they're students, but like that is the framing that they choose. And then like towards the end, like I can't even remember the name of the love story, like completely bypasses me. It's like it's fucking crap. Terrible. The true love story of Les Mis is between Javert and Jean Valjean, but that's a different take entirely. Like the victory of their story, of the love story, is that like he gives up on his revolutionary ideals and he becomes nobility, and they end up rich in a peaceful world. Like like this, exactly, and that's portrayed as like a win for him, and it's like great.
Isn't
Fuck this.
Not knowing Les Mis, it's like carried out perfectly. I didn't know the details of it like that, but I'm glad that like the take I was formulating map onto it exactly perfectly anyway. It's like this is exactly what middle class culture does to revolution. You're looking at a performance of bourgeois revolution where it's like like you just said, right? Like revolutionaries being portrayed as naive and idealistic. I don't think it's so they're students
nice
in the story.
They're nice. They mean well, you know.
Well,
they're just not realists.
I think
they're just not pragmatists. Yeah,
I think like
they're just not depressed.
Isn't this like a thing that happens in the Count of Monte Cristo as well? Like the Count of Monte Cristo is he gets betrayed and then he gets put in prison, and there's this like very fucking long like 5-chapter description of what it's like to starve and like lose your mind in prison and how brutal it is and all this, and then he gets out and then becomes rich and powerful. It's like no, this could have been a really good commentary on like, you know, why putting people in a cell to rot for years is really bad. But I mean, I guess it does that to an extent, but then the end. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. It's all capture. I think the word capture is just like absolutely vital in this discussion of art, right? It's like if you can have things that expose the contradictions and then put them right in people's faces, as long as the conclusions always do this, they capture it, right? They make sure that the conclusion you come to out of all of this is right. Like people point this out about fucking Marvel shows or whatever. I saw some discourse about Falcon and the Winter Soldier where they have Falcon, who's essentially a cop, and then they have like the enemy of the first season is Antifa. Like to just put it plainly, they are Antifa. And it's not even that like their stand-in Antifa do especially bad things that make it so that like, oh, they're based, except they do this bad thing, they kick the dog. It's just that like the show is trying to make a claim about the function of democracy, that like we should like the show is trying to take what it thinks is a radical stance and saying we must work much harder to hold politicians to account and have the right people holding the levers of power, because otherwise people's only option will be to do what Antifa are doing. And it's like, no, Antifa have reckoned with, they're not, you know, your anarchist faction you're portraying, they've reckoned with the fact that no one holding the levers of power can possibly make it good. And so they are opposed to the notion of the levers themselves. It's always to capture the conclusion that people come to, right? And I think that, I mean, you know, that's what I guess I'm saying about like remaining political, even if you're commodified, because like if you are if you're releasing a song where the only lyrics are revolution is the only solution over and over again, it's like there's no capture. There is no possibility of capture, no matter how it could be commodified, it could be plastered everywhere, it could be on all the fucking billboards, it could sell 1 million t-shirts, but it like that implicitly would not be people being defanged. Does that make sense? That's what I believe about it. Like, I don't think that would be like,
well,
yes.
I have a different opinion on this. I think that the commodification can just be in the consumption of the work, and the idea that by consuming that work, I am now participating in revolutionary actions. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's all. I don't think. Yeah. So like, I don't think it. I think there is an actual like issue with that. I think that even the most revolutionary language, once it's marketed under capitalism, does pose that risk, and you see it like over and over and over again. But I do agree with you in that, like, it is like, it can't be corrupted, but like any further. Like, its message is so pure and so to the point that there's really no room for it to be kind of, you know, co-opted by like Nancy Pelosi or something.
Well, I mean, like, I agree with that to a degree, but if we were to take the phrase "revolution is the only solution," for example, like, there are many liberals who could say, "Yeah, I'm going to revolutionize my wardrobe," and like,
but they would be engaging in a process of trying to defang the term when they do that, right? Like, it is they who would be trying to recuperate the notion of revolution, and it wouldn't be that the art itself had lost something.
And it is true what our boy Vladimir Ilyich Lenin said, in that capitalism will sell us the rope which we use to hang it with. You know, this happens like again and again and again. You know, as revolutionary ideas. Yeah, it is based, because it's true. Like, it's literally like, you know, revolutionary ideas and sort of being a lefty, at least, is getting more and more popular. Like, this is the fact. Yeah. Like, no one is very, very, very excited about the new romance film where like a woman has no autonomy. Like, no one fucking cares about that anymore. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's just like, at the very least, people will be there to turn their brains off. It's that kind of a, you know, those kinds of like movies. But like, you know, the things that are really exciting nowadays are things like, what's that Star Wars thing? I'm not a Star Wars. Andor. Yeah, everybody
which is
doing...
like mind-blowing that. Yeah, no spoilers. It's mind-blowing that it got made at all.
Right.
There's some stuff in there that I was like, oh wow.
I cannot wait to see. I want to see this like illegal, like it's not supposed to exist in the mainstream.
It's like, I mean, it's not that like,
make sure I see it. Let's just get on this in our Discord.
It's still very much like a Star Wars show made by Disney or whatever. But there's some stuff in it where it's like, oh wow, like, you know, like, you know, like, here's a little segment where a guy is like talking about how, you know, like fascists don't just, you know, they're not just using like military might or like populism kind of shit like that, but how they influence culture and, you know, like try and like push back on like, you know, like indigenous people and shit like that, just by using kind of like very subtle means and things like that. And like more like the kind of, I guess, like the bureaucracy of like this like fascist empire or whatever. So it is like, for a Disney property, it's about as good as you're gonna get. You know?
Can I suggest to like stop us casting around through bourgeois musicals and Disney products that I bring up? Judas and the Black Messiah that we just watched in the Discord last week.
Banger.
So
banger.
Take this as an example. We could talk about, you know, if this extreme like achieved a massive widespread success, that they, you know, that they were selling posters of fucking of Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton or whatever. Like,
but
I still, my point remains that like no one's gonna watch that movie and come out the other side like, well, capitalism should stay. Well,
I'm really glad that what was his name, Lakeith Stanfield's character, I'm really glad he betrayed Fred
Bill
Hampton.
O'Neill.
Bill O'Neill, I'm really glad he gave.
I mean, furthermore, I think this is like the really revolutionary part of the movie is that like a lot of liberals and much of liberal culture insists on telling us that like that the Black Panthers were dangerous and that they were I mean, it's said by the like main antagonist of the film like that they're just as bad as the Klan and shit like this. And that, for example, I think is a take that you can't really come out of the movie with unless you are just like a diehard racist or you're a cop watching it.
Yeah.
By the way, I
was
going to say that I did read, after we watched the movie, I was like poking around online, and I did read an article in The Guardian titled "Fred Hampton was a radical revolutionary. Judas and the Black Messiah ignores that." So whether or not you agree with this article, I can post in the chat, but I do think they make some points, because they talk about how, and this is the reality when it comes to like these historical portrayals of Black revolutionaries. Oftentimes, like, look at Martin Luther King Jr. His anti-capitalist messaging has been like thoroughly suppressed in favor of like his more like directly anti-racist messaging.
Yeah.
And so this article is about how the movie did something similar. If I could like, you know, whether or not you agree with it, I think for the discussion we're having, it's particularly relevant.
Well, the Guardian are at least sort of like saying that it needs to be more radical.
Right. And like, they're not saying anything the other direction. Yeah. I'm gonna post in the chat if anyone wants to read it, but I thought it was an interesting perspective. And
I think you're right.
I'm not smart enough to know whether or not either way.
No.
Like, that's a good point. I guess it could be true.
No, I think you're right. I think that like that's a really valuable thing to take away from it, is that it still needs to be radical, but it is kind of like wild that, I mean, you know, I was just sort of like having a look there because it made me think, actually, because I am a fucking movie nerd, and I do think about this when I think about films, because it's a great film just in general, even sort of without the
and to be fair, they crammed in like a ton of shit in a very like smooth flowing way in like less than 2 hours or something. So like,
I was really interested in it because it's a black produced, black directed, it might not be black produced, but it's black directed, you know, mostly like black crew and you know, actors, and it, you know, made me think like, how much did this make at the box office? And apparently it grossed $5 million, I think, and so that's not so bad. I think, the box office, is $7 million.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so worldwide total is $7.4 million. And I think that's pretty fucking good going for a film where the main character mainly just sort of like calls everybody a comrade on purpose. Do you know what I mean? Like,
unironically.
Right. If you're showing this in the US, people in the US know what the word comrade means, right?
It has certain connotations.
Yeah, so I do agree, though. I do still agree that it should be more radical, but
I think that there is like kind of that element when you are kind of like, I guess, when we as people that are, I guess, like politically informed and kind of know, you know, who Fred Hampton was and stuff like that, they don't like in the movie, I don't think there's much in the way of actually saying like, you know, him being like, I'm a Marxist-Leninist or anything like that. But it's like, we know he was a Marxist. So we're like, oh yeah, these things he's saying, they're based or whatever like that.
Hey,
but
it's
like
Sophie with her artistic brain here to slap you all into shape. He says explicitly that Chairman Mao is the teacher from which he's repeating his words. Repeats Chairman Mao's take that that politics is war without bloodshed and war is politics with bloodshed.
That's
He's saying this while there's like another chalkboard to the side that says from each according to their ability to each according their needs. He says we're not going to stop capitalism with black capitalism, we're going to stop capitalism with socialism. You know, I think there's
but I feel like, you know, just as like because I know a lot of people that have seen it, like we're talking about it at work, and a lot of people still watched the movie and came out of it being like, oh yeah, I didn't realize they were like communists. I just thought they were like, you know, I thought it was like they just wanted like black rights and stuff. And it's like, okay, like, I mean, maybe you weren't paying too much attention or whatever like that.
They were doing brain turn off. Yeah. They were doing
okay, that's a fair point. I mean, ultimately, if people are coming away like that, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, no, like here's a paragraph from the article. Like, again, I'm not smart enough to know either way, but it says the movie does make clear that Hampton is a socialist, but in our current political movement, when the term socialist can mean anything from universal health care to workers controlling the means of production, it is important to understand and respect that Hampton had a very specific understanding of the world and what must be done to make it a place worth living in and dying for. I guess I agree with that. I mean, like, I kind of couldn't pay like the most rapt attention to the movie, and I promise we won't be talking about this one movie, because if you haven't seen it, then it's kind of like
this
conversation's probably not that useful to you. But you should watch it. Everyone should watch it. And if you were a patron in Goblin mode or higher for us, Red Planet, you would have been part of the watch party where we did watch it together.
But you weren't, were you? You weren't.
Consume our content and give us capital to work with.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. But like I guess from what I remember of the movie, and my brain doesn't work very well when it comes to like movies, but what I remember of it, I think this statement is fairly true in that like they didn't get very specific, but like, you know, I think the criticism is then good, I guess, but I also think that it's a movie. You can't really like read theory. You know, there was so much in that movie that I felt like my brain couldn't keep up with it. I really don't know how much they could have managed like in like explicit discussion of theory. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, I definitely agree with that.
Maker,
although like I would say even the plot of the film, this is going to be me just arguing with like being annoyed at someone for not getting it rather than like evaluating what the movie is doing. But like the plot of the movie shows him winning over white racists to work side by side with the Black Panthers, which happened in real life, because he tells them we're the working class and we should we should overthrow the ruling class. But I don't know. It's
I feel like the Guardian article wanted it to be like explicitly, you know, propaganda. I mean,
we're gonna watch the movie and then we're gonna start chanting in the cinema. We're gonna walk out. We're gonna start. You know, like
it is propaganda in a way. It is propaganda in a way, but it's certainly not like what that person wanted. And like, I mean, there's a place for that for sure. But maybe they can come and get that stuff on Red Planet because we do that. You know, we're just sat here telling everybody to go communist.
I think I agree with Sophie though a little bit more on this, but yeah, just wanted to introduce the idea. Anyways, go ahead.
Think about what we were talking about earlier with the new movie that is coming out, the How to Blow Up a Pipeline movie based on the Andreas Malm book that we, you know, everyone take a drink, whatever. Yeah, like it makes me wonder about that as well, because this is a book that, well, you know, like it's not a story, you know. So I'm wondering how they're going to approach making this movie, whether it's like a made up story kind of based on, because in the book, even though it, you know, it's not one structured story, but it does contain a bunch of smaller kind of like sections talking about the, you know, the tactics used, the kind of the people behind various kind of acts of like activism or whatever. So I wonder if it's going to be kind of like an amalgamation of that stuff, or if they're going to be like, oh no, here's some kids that read my book and here's them doing some you know, like some direct action or something like that. I'm pretty interested to see how that comes out, because it's like, I think one of the strongest things about How to Blow Up a Pipeline, the book, is that it basically is a call to action. You know, it's saying like, this is what's happening, this is what we can do, and this is what you can do, sort of thing. So and I would be surprised if the movie didn't kind of continue that, or, you know, at least have that same sentiment.
On How to Blow Up a Pipeline, there are like several ideas I'd like to evaluate. So one is like is that we're adapting a theory book, essentially, and a book of political analysis into as you're saying, like a story-driven narrative movie. And it's like, well, in order to bring the most people to watch a movie, that's probably a smart move, right? And then what are we trying to get out of it? Is it that the movie itself inspires something, or is the best case scenario from the movie that like as many people as possible say, oh shit, I want to read the book that's based on, and then they find out that it's not a story and they go read the actual theory. You know, but I think there's a set of assumptions in that they are making, or decisions that they've made. I don't want to say that they're acting, you know, kind of like a zombie through this. Like they've made a set of decisions about what they want to do with that movie, right? And the decisions they've made are like, we want as many people as possible to watch the movie. We think the best way to do that is a narrative. We want the narrative to reflect the ideas of the book. And then, like I say, I don't know, because we haven't seen the movie yet, we can't say, but, you know, maybe what they're saying is we want people to go read the book because of the movie, or maybe they're hoping that all the ideas will translate through this kind of adaptation. And that's, I guess there are several questions in that. One is kind of about portraying the same ideas through different media, which Alasdair, you might have some thoughts on. you know, like if there was a how to blow up a pipeline track or something, you know, like it would not be just reading from the book. It would not just be like the audio book.
No, like I think like one of the like valuable things about like taking theory and putting it into another like creative medium is like the emotional connection that you form with the person who's engaging with it. Like any art is only as valuable as the feelings that it gives someone else. And like I can see why like maybe this movie is going to be a way that like people feel how to blow up a pipeline, and then maybe they'll read it and like I buy Capitalist Realism all the time. I have bought that book so many times, and I never get the copies I lend away back.
I feel like we've all got a book like that.
Yeah. And like, but regardless of that, I'm never going to succeed in getting like people to just buy that book. Like, I think a few people have read it because of the emotional connection they formed with the record, and like, with all of these pieces of art, you're like looking to like tug on something that someone feels, some like deep-seated thing, and that's one of the most powerful motivators, and one of the like reasons that any art is revolutionary is that.
So you're saying it's not facts and logic that wins people over. You're saying it's actually like appeals to humanity and things that.
I'm looking forward to
memes.
people's feelings about facts and logic.
No, I think that's very true. To return to my doomerism project, well, to backtrack, like I watched a game dev talk by Yoko Taro, who made Nier Automata many years ago now, where he said that like the reason his games are so fucking batshit crazy is that he engages in a really pure process with everything else stripped away of like, what do I want someone to feel and in what order? And then how do I just make them feel those feelings? That's all I want. He doesn't start from a place of like, where shall I set my story and who shall the character be and blah, blah, blah. Right. And ever since watching that, I've tried to do the same in my writing. Just like what set of feelings do I want people to go through? And the Doomerism project would be a fantastic example of this, because once I decided I wanted to undoom pill people, the next thing I did for about 2 years was like start having really long conversations with people who I like, you know, identified as a doomer. Yes. I became absolutely fucking insufferable at parties because I would just like, if I could identify that someone believed the world was going to end, I would say, that's an interesting belief you have. You're going to spend the rest of the party with me now, right? I would just sit with them and like refute arguments until they were no longer a doomer. And you know, one thing that I noticed was like, regardless of what argument, like how many points I was able to get through, how strong my arguments were, and so on, that like people would come around to the idea the world is not ending and that we can get together and do something if they agreed at an early stage to sit with me in the idea that that's true. And then there was a sufficient period after agreeing that we'd just sit in that world for a little while to explore some of the options in it. And like some people would go very quickly, like from, okay, well, we'll just suppose what you're saying is true, Sophie. They'd go very quickly to like, oh, I completely agree it's true. And other people would sit with that for a really long time, and they'd come back, they'd text me in 2 weeks and be like, I've been thinking about this and I actually can't refute the idea. Like now that I've agreed to suppose it's true, you know, for a thought experiment or whatever, I actually can't prove you wrong.
So, Sophie, what you're saying is you debated these people in the marketplace of ideas. And you did all of this, by the way, by not actually debating anyone on a live stream.
I didn't say any slurs.
You didn't say any slurs, or
I simply pulled them into the dojo and I asked them to hit me, and then they couldn't. So
I think
I for one don't believe
before
it.
they knew kung fu, and they just and then and now they're pulling other people into the dojo. I just noticed that Nat had left a comment in the chat as well saying talking about the How to Blow Up a Pipeline movie, saying,
Oh, yeah.
from the trailer, it looks like they're working through the arguments and justifications for sabotaging the systems that are killing us. So they're framing the conversation in relatable terms through personal relationships, which I think is great. That's like a thing, like I've seen that in a lot of like, I guess, politically focused movies before. You see a lot of that in Sorry to Bother You, you know, it's like the characters kind of like internal kind of like working through like whether he's going to be a scab or not and stuff, but framing it through conversations with like himself, the union guy, and his girlfriend who has more radical politics than he does and stuff. So I think that's a really cool way of doing it, because if you're watching a movie like that, you might be thinking like, oh yeah, I guess these guys are right, but like I don't know if I agree with what they're doing. So then, you know, like you get to see them have those conversations, and something like that I think could be really interesting, and also really, I guess, like, you know, like politically useful as well for people just coming to watch it because they think it looks like a fucking sick movie or whatever. So
it's I mean, we can't necessarily hope that trailers are perfectly reflective of the film, but supposing that it is, like what they've cut together for the trailer is largely just them each stating why they care about it, and then the back half of the trailer is them reading out their manifesto. And so it's kind of like, if that is representative of the movie, then that's exactly what this is. It's just going, this is why you should care, and then this is what you need to do. Alice, you were going to say something, and we were all a bit excited.
Well, it's all good. I'm sure many of us are neurodivergent in this room.
I think everyone here is actually.
Yes. Yeah. Hi. But like, talking about like basically deprogramming people against like either like the tendency. I've had a lot of friends who've like slid towards like really depressed feelings about the world, and then sometimes that leads them to more reactionary politics and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crucially, in every argument, not argument, as soon as it's an argument, you've lost, right? As soon as you're like, as soon as someone feels that they have to win against you, you've failed, and you need to be like you need to back off a little bit. I think the crucial thing with this is that the other person is looking to be recognized, looking to be understood. They want to be validated in their humanity in some way. And you have to have so much patience. You have to be so ready to be like, tell me about how that feels. It's
or
never
if you've already
about...
had like 36 conversations with people going through the same thing, you can go, I bet that feels like this, and they go, oh my god, how did you know?
Or if you've been in that place, right? Like, and then you could say, hey, I know what that feels like. Like but yeah, like it's never like, you can't convince someone fully with like a watertight argument, like, because a lot of people can't hear a watertight argument. Like, you need to have them in the headspace to be able to hear that. And this is like something that is like something I really want to explore further with regards to the revolutionary potential of psychotherapy, is that like there's a show on the BBC called Couples Therapy, which is like, if you've not watched it, there's like 3 series of it, and it's astounding television. Like, like, give it a watch, and just watch the way that people interact. And one of the things that becomes really clear there is that like, when someone says something on one side, the other person hears something completely different. Like, they're not like actually getting what that person's saying. They're hearing like filtered versions of that, or like transformed, warped versions of that, or they're hearing something that was on their head already. Something that's
totally.
like
my partner Nat has a great example of this. She brings up all the time, which I think is just really useful language for people to bring into relationships. So that's why I'm sharing it right now. It's always never arguments. So she says that like, if you say like, I'd like you to do the dishes some more, what they often will hear is, you never do the dishes. It might even be that you're saying, you never do the dishes, which is a ridiculous thing to say, but like what you're trying to express is, can we figure out a good balance of us doing the dishes? And then the reason it's like an always never thing is that it's, I always do the dishes and you never do the dishes, which is a really unfair position to like come at the conversation with, or like Can you tell I have BPD and she has to be in a relationship with someone with BPD? But it's like this is a conversation that people find themselves in either by someone actually saying you never and I always, or vice versa, or someone saying, you know, the reasonable thing and the other person hearing you always and I never, you know?
Yeah. And like if you have to recognize that like someone is going to bring all of themselves, all of the experiences that they've had to every conversation that they partake in. And so if your goal is to try and help them understand the revolutionary ideas that you're trying to like reveal to them, and that they probably are kind of somewhat aware of in some way internally anyway, as soon as you start like making them feel like you're right and they're wrong, and you're smart and they're stupid, and you can't always control that, you know, like some people's like tolerance for that is really, really low, and that's fine. Like
especially men.
That's where they're at.
I was gonna say,
yes, especially men.
Yeah.
I've been seen.
No, a really good example of this would be the character that George Clooney plays in the Coen Brothers film Hail Caesar. It's got a lot of like biblical conversion and like coming to Jesus moments that are represented throughout the film. And one of them that's really interesting is that like the character George Clooney plays is this absolute idiot. He's a complete airhead, and he gets kidnapped by a group of Marxists who are like doing a whole covert plot to try and like change Hollywood. It's very fun. It's very camp.
Amazing.
And like,
I need to watch this movie.
as they do. You know what Marxists are like.
Classic
it's
Marxists.
Like, the movie has a really interesting relationship to Marxist theory because like it has this Jesus thing going on the whole time, and then the movie does end out with the Internationale. Like it's a chorus of workers' voices singing that. So it's like what right after he had been like reciting a great speech about how he's been I guess like in the movie movies about Hollywood, so his character is an actor who is playing a character who is giving a big speech about like witnessing Christ basically, and then right after that it will cut to the Internationale. But what happens in the movie is that he is kidnapped by these Marxists, and because he's this airhead, like these guys being pretty friendly towards him even though they've kidnapped him, and just telling him kind of authoritatively but not not hostilely like what they believe in, he completely swallows it all like wholesale. And you know that's he's an interesting character because like in one sense this is like the subject we would all wish for when we're making revolutionary art, right? This is the guy we want to be listening, is the guy who would just be like, cool, I completely agree, because he's just got no thoughts of his own. But then what's really interesting is that he goes back to, you know, he gets found, he gets away from the people who've kidnapped him, and Eddie, who is essentially the protagonist of the film, who's a Hollywood fixer, like he is managing the talent and making sure that and doing a lot of like covert stuff to hide scandals and stuff. When Clooney's character comes to him and is just like, I've heard all these great ideas that there's the dialectic and they can like predict the future because they're really smart with their science or something, and Eddie just like backhands him and is like, cut that out, and he does, right? And so I guess, you know, this thing with the end of the movie when he then kind of sees Christ in the movie that he's acting in, and the ideas being preached by Christ about the equalities of all, you know, the equality of all living things. You know, that they're doing a cheeky thing to do with Jesus was a socialist, etc. But it's really interesting to see that on a personal level, it's not any kind of refutement by like a capitalist character being like, no, capitalism's better. He like literally just a mean tough guy in his life, you know, just bullies him into not saying any of the Marxist things anymore. And it's like the emotional really emotional and social influence on ideas is the big one. I mean, this came up a lot when I was looking at conspiratorial belief, right? Conspiratorial belief is emotional and social. It's not based on evidence or facts, even though they talk all the time in evidence and facts. But honestly, that's just how all human belief works.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
it's like I've like debated multiple landlords in the marketplace of ideas. And even when, you know, we're there saying we have all of this evidence that you are a shit landlord, you know, I don't know, whatever it might be, we've got texts where you're sexually harassing your tenant, literally like, you know, photos of things that have happened, and they will sit there and say, actually, I'm the one being abused. That's what's happening right now. You know, it's like it is that really sort of people are.
And then you say you will be if you don't cut it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, well,
say in Minecraft, and no
theoretically,
one feels bad, everything's fine.
Theoretically,
we'll write
you know,
a song about you, really.
Right, exactly. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like that sort of disconnect that people have with the actual facts and just how they feel, right? Which is annoying because you know, it's the opposite of what Ben Shabibo says, isn't it? You know, feelings don't care about facts. Actually, that's the opposite way around. Yeah,
it's almost like when your class interests are like absolutely overwhelm your like ability to like connect with other humans. Like your class interest is to continue your position as an exploiter. It's almost like facts don't really matter that much.
But the majority of the time they don't even see themselves as that, because the system is so good. The system is so good at like saying, oh, this is just what everybody does. What's that? You've come into possession of a property. Oh, well, the only natural thing to do is exploit that, right? And then you don't have to work.
Well, they're
You're
rewarded
not in the
for
race
it
anymore. Exactly.
So,
you know,
like like I think like the connection there is to do with like the physiological instinct to survive, right? It's kind of evolutionary psychology. And like, well, I mean, like in that position, they like, you know, this person's feeling like the shit landlord is like, they feel attacked right now, and that feels bad, but like it triggers a survival.
This is actually my comfort rent, and I don't want to be taken away from it. I think this there was a big discourse around the rise of Trump, where some people were kind of feeling like he has very easy, quick ways to say the things that he's saying, and that's why he's winning. If he could say a 3-word phrase, build the wall, and it means so much to people and they all chant it together. But I don't think that it's like a complexity of ideas versus like the other side has dumb ideas, so they're able to win, because that's a really defeatist position. In my researching of conspiracy theories, like I've recently come to kind of believe that groups are often or always even defined by what conspiracy beliefs they have. And they're not necessarily conspiracy beliefs, but a better way to put it would probably be like, what lies are we willing to agree on? That defines the group that we're in, right? There are always deceptions that your ideology creates for you and the other people who share that ideology, and where you will look at something that is not a provably true statement and agree with your friend, that is where you share the same ideology. That is the like borders of your ideological grouping. Because like, sorry,
go.
Okay. So you're really enjoying this. I'm glad. Okay. So conspiracy beliefs are something called an epistemic claim, an epistemic entity, and they rely on knowledge claims. So knowledge claims, for example, could be the FBI killed Martin Luther King, right? I'm claiming to know something that I'm saying by stating it, I'm saying it must be true. But an epistemic entity has this existence in the world where people will see it differently depending on their epistemology, depending on their understanding of the structuring of knowledge. And so if you are a dyed-in-the-wool liberal and you trust every institution that you've ever encountered, then you only believe in authorized knowledge. And conspiracy beliefs use knowledge claims from stigmatized knowledge, right? So whether or not they are valid sources, whether or not they are true, whether or not we can piece together a lot of very credible facts that really point to the fact that the FBI definitely killed Martin Luther King. It doesn't matter in terms of like some absolute truth. It's that all of those things that we can use to prove that are stigmatized knowledge. All of the knowledge claims that we use to build the statement the FBI killed Martin Luther King are not pieces of information that you're going to be taught in school, that they're going to publish in newspapers, that a government minister will be happy to go on a press event and say, right? Because they are not pieces of knowledge that will be authorized. And that's what makes a conspiracy theory, right? That's what makes it that it's built on stigmatized knowledge claims. And I think that it's epistemic entities. It's these ideas that we look at, and because we think of knowledge organized in one way, we see it as the FBI killed Martin Luther King, and we all agree on it. And then someone else who has a different epistemology, they look at that and they refuse it. They can't have it be true because of the way that they understand knowledge, the way that they consume information, the way that their informational environment fits together.
Sophie, that's so smart. Have you written an essay on this or something? Or
some sort
no,
of...
actually, I've never written anything in my life.
Video essay.
But I think that like this actually relates very closely to because this is to do with the simplification down of complex ideas. And it has to do with people whose ideologies align, and therefore how we can build group identity and maybe even construct group consciousness, as Mark Fisher would put it. Right. This relates to, say, writing a narrative movie out of a theory book, or writing a song, like writing song lyrics based on more complicated ideas, because making simplistic statements like the FBI killed MLK, right? They have to rely on a lot of, like, it's like the swan, right? Like, this is utterly serene to say the FBI killed Martin Luther King, but underneath the water, it's fucking, right? It's absolutely frantic. There's so much else going on that you're not seeing, right? And you don't see it.
I've not seen that meme format. Let's have that.
but like, yeah, okay, if it's a meme format, you know, the serene swan is labeled the FBI killed Martin Luther King, and then like underneath the surface, there has to be absolutely frantic paddling in order for this to stay so simple and serene. And I think it's like, some parts of the construction of revolutionary art has to be in making statements that are really simple and concise, but divide people between the people who will agree with them because of their beliefs, because of all the frantic construction that the vast majority of the knowledge construction, and people who, because they have an irreconcilable ideology with that statement, will not agree with it, right? A great example of this would be ACAB. Right, liberals cannot grasp ACAB. They just simply cannot. And it's because like they're taking all cops are bastards. They have a very individualistic ideology. So the statement all cops are bastards reads individualistically. They're saying all cops, every individual who is a cop, every single person who has taken the job of police officer is a bastard, a bad person. And we, with a systemic understanding of the world, with one that's based on, like understanding policing as an institution, policing as a phenomenon, policing as something that has a history to it and a reason for existing that we know about. We're like, all cops are bastards. Yes, to be a cop is to be a bastard.
Yeah, nice. Very good. I'm wondering if it's time to start transitioning into the question time.
It probably is, right? It's like 25 minutes left on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
we got a few of them.
All right.
Sick.
So what is?
Don't worry about that.
I'm missing the. I'm just going to skip the first one. I don't know what's going on there, but Nat, my beautiful tiny wife Nat has asked, question for Alasdair: does your teaching work inform your art, and vice versa? I'd love to hear about how you bring your revolutionary politics into a teaching environment. Should have been wearing my glasses, and also how the neoliberal teaching environment might frustrate that.
It's very frustrating. I find like
I can hear the bubbling rage when you say that.
I find that like in terms of how teaching influences my art, like at a very base level, I'm a chemistry teacher. I use quite a lot of chemistry metaphors in my lyrics, but that's knowledge based rather than like the social environment. Schools are very frustrating places because they're like prison factories, and you have very limited scope to talk about stuff that directly matters to the kids. But what I found is you don't need to like tell them what to think, like anybody. Like I think like the big liberal fear is that all these woke leftists are going to come in and brainwash our children, but like you can just kind of present to most kids how the world is and how it works, and they can just work it out for themselves.
Absolutely.
Like and like I feel that the school is a real microcosm of society at large. Like the kids aren't always necessarily aware of that, and neither are like the staff. But like it's a very strictly structured, hierarchical, like time-controlled, disciplinary environment that has moved into a neoliberal space where the control is more soft, but there is still this remnant of the disciplinary society. I feel like I've lost the question ever so slightly.
No, I think that what you're saying is pretty accurate to the
end.
Absolutely. I think what you're saying about like if you could just teach people about how the world is, but you're not like effectively you're not allowed to. That would do a great deal.
I can draw attention to like key contradictions. I can draw attention to like things that directly affect the kids. As a chemist, I talk about the chemical industry as part of my work, and we have to consider things like environmental concerns and economics and whatnot. And the conversations always come up, like people are, we talk about crude oil. Like I'm an organic chemist. A big part of like my work is to do with the derivatives of crude oil. And
I'm imagining the one narc kid running to the headmaster and being like, "Sir, Mr. Dunn's being based again. Help! You gotta stop him."
Oh no! I don't tell anybody what to think. But like the kids, like I work at quite a nice school, if you like, one with like lots of middle and like upper middle class kids. And like one thing that a lot of people believe about children is that like they have like the same like class standing as their parents, which is completely false. They might inherit some of like the cultural signifiers of those classes, but kids have no money and no power, like at all. Like they exist as the lowest rung of social hierarchy in a school, and therefore they are ideally placed to understand why entrenched authoritarian hierarchy is bad. So, like, yeah.
I was thinking about this. I was watching the I can't find a funny way to say this. I was going to say like the LGBTQ plus high concept drama Skinamarink last night. I guess I'm going with that. But I was watching Skinamarink last night. The joke is, for anyone who doesn't understand, is that it's not that. But basically, no. I was watching that last night.
Deception.
I was watching that last night. And for those of you that don't know, it's basically like it is a high concept film about like seeing things from like a child's nightmare perspective kind of thing. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about how like when you're a kid, your house, like when you're a young kid, like 4 or 5, like or younger, the whole house is the world. Like that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's massive. Anything outside the house is like incomprehensible. You can't even imagine what's out there. And then when you go to school, it becomes school. Like school is the whole world, and that's it. And everything outside of it is incomprehensible. And maybe at school you might like, dive out of that thing. You might like for example, I always like sort of reference this, like one of the first most base things I ever did was cut a hole in the fence in school so that kids could get out and go to the Iraq war protest. Like,
nice.
I got caught, but like the thing is that I got caught, and that could have made me go like, oh yeah, I shouldn't do anything like that. I shouldn't try and get out of the, you know, the fishbowl of school.
Serves me right.
Yeah, it serves me
right. He got detention
like,
for the people because he lives for the people because he loves the people.
and it's like that, right? It's like when you're in school and your teacher is like, you know, I don't know, because there's so much that happens. It's like you say, it's a microcosm, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what the teacher says because the teacher is a bastard, just generally speaking, right?
Teachers
you know what I mean?
are cops.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And as a teacher, like, you have to, like, if you just, I mean, I literally
Alasdair just keeps getting more based all the time. It's not fair. It's just not fair.
Well, I exist, like, I have institutional power over all of these people. Exactly. Like, as much as I have a great deal of care for them and, like, I have their best interests at heart, I can still tell them where they're allowed to go. They have to ask me if they can use the bathroom. You know, like, these things are ridiculous. But like, yeah.
Like a prison.
It is
a prison.
Many things are, yeah.
A prison factory. Hybrid.
So,
can I quickly say that this is a complaint, personal complaint, but can everyone watching the show and whoever else, like, stop demonizing children so much as like a trend? Like, I see this a lot where people just like shit on children, and they're like a really oppressed group of people that are like thoroughly like exploited and manipulated. And I mean, I feel like we should be fighting for them instead of just looking at them as like pests or nuisances.
100%. We should do an episode on child liberation. Honestly, I'm writing an essay about it right now.
Oh, hell yeah, let's do it.
Ooh, yeah, cool. I mean, like in the UK, like I mean, I don't know about other countries, but like minimum wage for people under like 25, I think, is like. And then there's other increments like lower and lower to like 16 or whatever. Yeah. Like that's like really, I mean, for people doing the same job as someone older than them. Like I've got kids who leave their jobs to come to school. Do you know what I mean? And they're getting paid.
Oh, that's such a
Britain
percentage.
Hates kids.
Abolish Britain. Fucking
hates
hell.
Kids.
They want to bring back the little chimney scrubbing children so bad. Like,
that is all the Tory party.
They love little ashy faced children.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I would like to say that I did used to be one of those cringe lords who used to say, "God, I hate kids.
Me too.
They're so disgusting." And it's like, I feel like
they're just people, man.
Yeah, this is it. I think it always comes from a place of like, I do not want the responsibility of looking after kids because I've been trained to think that kids are like a pain and shit like that, and that my individuality is what matters. My individuality is the most important thing, right? My individuality, my independence, my quote unquote freedom. But the freedom is a lie, the independence is a lie, and the individuality is a lie, isn't it? So it's all you know what I mean? So when you break
ideology.
that down, yeah, exactly, it's ideology all the way down. And then when you figure that out, then you suddenly realize, actually, like, caring for kids is one of the most important things. Like, you know, advocating for children, you know, making sure that they are like not being oppressed and abused. So important, like extremely important. So I fully agree.
I've come from like a similar place where I used to like shit on kids and stuff, and I think some of that has to do with what you're talking about. I think some of it also has to do with just hating shitty parents, I guess, or what I perceive to be shitty parents. Yeah. But then here's the thing: if you're demonizing the children for that, like, it's
not their fault.
It's not their fault, right? It's not their fault.
One of the things we have to really keep in mind, we have a phrase in education which is all behavior is communication, and like anything that anyone does is telling you something. And like, if a kid is acting out, it's probably because they need something from you, or from someone, and not necessarily from you. And often it's a lack from parents who themselves are acting in a similar way, in a way because of their own shit. Like, do you know what I mean? Anyway, I
have something that's still
for this.
Well, I have something that's still to do with the original question a little bit. So I just want to say, I was reading So Maya's excellent book that everyone should read. It's called A Nazi Word for a Nazi Thing. and it's about the process of queer erasure during and after the Holocaust. And something that they highlight is like, as a non-binary Jewish person who grew up under Section 28, they were saying that like Section 28, if people aren't familiar, forbid the teaching of the promotion of LGBT lifestyles in schools, but actually it was just you couldn't say that gay people existed at all. And they highlight that like Section 28 caused Holocaust denial in the British education system as a direct systematic effect of Section 28, because if you couldn't promote gay people, and promote means acknowledge they exist, you definitely can't say that a really bad thing happened to them. So they had to engage in Holocaust denial. They had to never teach that any gay people were killed in the Holocaust, right?
Yeah. Absolutely wild. Well, let's go on to the next question
2.
In this
20 minutes.
It's a smaller one.
This is I think this is going to be a quicker answer. Alejandro Bujo says, what is Ashenspire's main metal influences?
So like I would say like they've changed over time. The biggest metal influence for this record was a band called Altar of Plagues, who are a post-black metal band from Ireland, or were. They stopped making music, particularly their last record called Teeth, Glory and Injury, which is a really, really transgressive, like horrible, like nasty, noisy piece of music. It's
sounds
really,
right on my street.
You'll love it. It's a grueling work, and it is astounding. It really is. There's a band called The Forest of Stars from Leeds who are like friends of ours who like I got into like early on in my time making music, and they were like really influential in the way I was writing and my vocal delivery. But now they're pals, so it feels ever so slightly strange to be like, these guys like really influenced my music, and like
weird how that can happen.
But yeah, they're really sound, really wonderful people. Other like direct influences would be like, let's see, open up iTunes.
This is literally what I would do if I had to answer this question.
Really, like, I listen to like a lot of different music. So like latterly, the music that influenced Hostile Architecture is like a mixture of kind of post-black metal, like the most recent inventive extreme metal stuff, which is quite tellingly 10 years old at this point. But I also like a lot of like fusion, like jazz fusion and kind of hip hoppy stuff, like Bad Not Good influenced the record. And there's a rapper called Ed Scissortongue, or like Ed Scissor, who like really influenced the record too. Even there's one of the songs on the album that's like 100% a rap song, and no one's been able to tell so far. But it's like, yeah, like if you listen out for it, you'll probably hear it.
Do you mean so in like the kind of like the way that you've like, have you like structured it like kind of like beat first just over like kind of like a similar kind of thing, and then okay, interesting.
And like I mean it follows a kind of like perhaps more like movement on the instrumental side than like a hip-hop track necessarily would, but like it's it at its core, at its very basis, that's what it is. And
nice.
Whatever. If you're going to listen to one album that inspires Ashenspire, if you're feeling Ash inspired.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, wow.
Did you name yourself that just for this one moment?
Don't pay it off.
No. As if I came up with that joke. I would have once upon a time said that Primordial were a really big influence, but then they turned out to be reactionary arseholes. So sad times.
It happens to a lot of big metal bands, right? Like,
yeah.
I just have a tiny little question that I think we can add on to that. Is the name Ashenspire, is that anything to do with FromSoft games?
It's nothing to do with FromSoft games.
Okay,
I have never played one.
No worries. Just wanted to double check.
You're missing out.
You gotta shoot your shot, King. It's okay.
You gotta do it. You gotta shoot your shot.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, DJ Mule.
I'm sorry, I'm too busy playing Disco Elysium again and again and again. So.
Fair enough.
So the next question is very similar to the last one, but there's a bit of difference in it. Jaffameister asks, here's my question: contemporary black metal bands you're listening to right now. One of my favorites at the moment is Agriculture, and I'm curious to know if you come across them too and what you think.
Agriculture are cool. I haven't really listened to them a lot, but they are cool. Contemporary black metal bands that are doing cool stuff. Like of that like ilk. Like the post-black metal stuff that was really pushing boundaries. Liturgy are like one of the ones that are still going and still doing really like incredible music, fronted by trans women, deeply weird philosophical concepts behind it all. Sophie, you'll love it.
From a trans woman?
Yeah. It's deeply autistic and it's amazing.
I feel like they were one of those bands that when they came out, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is like a poser band," and then eventually they just had to kind of admit, like, "Oh no, actually, they are good." Like, and they're not really going away.
Those people died off. The cowards, killed by the powerful riffs.
I think that there is like a lot of like, a band like that'll come out, and if they seemingly pop out of nowhere, everyone's just like, oh, they're just jumping on a trend, and it's like, well, everyone writes a first album at some point,
Right, exactly. I'm so sorry that my first song didn't have any structure and the lyrics were...
Sorry that you don't know me for 20 years because we've been part of the same scene of old guys, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
Yeah. I want to like make a special shout out to these guys, Abest. Like they released an album last year called Molten Husk, which is like just super rad, like amazing dudes. We toured with them in Germany and they were really amazing and I love them. Beautiful, beautiful boys.
I do love beautiful boys. I'll be checking them out.
But yeah, like I don't know. A lot of the stuff I'm listening to at the moment is not really black metal. Like most like of the really like one of the things people are drawn to with regards to black metal is atmosphere and intensity and energy. And frankly, like noise rock does that better. Like it's got more going on. So I listen to like quite weird, noisy stuff. And like parametal and Rush and jazz and one last one, Plebeian Grandstand. If people haven't listened to Plebeian Grandstand,
I think, right?
Big old plebs in the grandstand.
We stand the plebs.
They're outstanding. Really, really, like if you want music that's gonna like make you feel a lot of pain.
Awesome.
That's them.
Dope.
Cool. 3 questions left.
Well,
let's do
the
it.
next one is this is a deep one from
This is very this is from Ghost, one of my chatters, and it's extremely him. So
the question is intellectual property the rentier capitalist tool for extracting profit from creative works in perpetuity? Or is it the master's magical unicorn tool that can dismantle the master's house?
No.
I don't like that he's
under
given
capitalism.
Sorry.
He's given us
Let him live. Okay, keep going.
Follow up. Under capitalism, are artists incentivized towards petite bourgeois self-interest over proletarian solidarity?
Well, they're definitely incentivized towards it. Like 100%. Like the value of like, I don't know, the creation of art becomes labor. Like it has to be we have to justify it as labor to justify the time spent on it. under neoliberalism. Like, but it isn't labor in the same way. It's like it's creation. It's like it is work a lot of the time, and developing your craft is often that. But like, it's this weird thing where you like, yes, we have to transform our creation into labor, but then it becomes part of the market, and like our the results of that become a product to be sold. And so of course you're incentivized not to like put the struggle of the proletariat to the fore. Like it's like, because you've got to fucking pay your rent and like eat, and like
There's a fantastic video essay by my friend Sarah Zedig that more people should watch. Like, not enough people have seen. That's called "The Labor of Art," and it's primarily about how the labor of art is not just in the act of creating the art. It is when you're an artist, when you're creative, you have to understand that like so much of the time that you're consuming other art, you know, supposedly for your own enjoyment, you're actually doing it because it influences the art you're working on. And
oh my god, that's so true.
So like you can't just switch off. You can't just, well, I mean, Disco Elysium would be a great example, right, Alasdair? Like you're not you're like, you'd love to just go switch off and play your favorite video game. Oh no, there's themes in this. I'm experiencing ideology. Oh fuck.
But also like the time that we spend creating art also is kind of like adds to the future art that we create. Like the art that we create is like kind of like, you know, like I think like, you know, this is informed mainly by me being a tattooist, and it's kind of like people aren't paying just for my time and the labor that allows me to do a tattoo in this amount of time, but also my history of doing all this labor in the past that allows me to do that work in that time, you know. And I think that, you know, it's the same with like painting and everything like that. And I'm guessing it's the same with music. Like, you know, once you like, the more you do it, the more you kind of figure out what works for you and how it's going to work, and allows you to do all that kind of stuff, which I think is like, you know, like a lot of people will say, you know, and this is the same for like any kind of commercial artists, like graphic designers and stuff. They're like, oh, it's only going to take you like an hour or something like that. But it all the time beforehand is what allowed it to only take me an hour. You know?
This is like a really interesting thing that we've been thinking a lot about with regards to like playing shows. So like, especially in the UK, like the culture surrounding like paying musicians at all is non-existent. Like
abolish Britain.
We've been treated really well in like in Europe. But like here, you have to really scrape and fight for like the bare minimum food, accommodation, and it's treated as being like this, like you'll get what you get, and it doesn't matter how many of you there are and how much work has gone into not just this evening's performance, but like, you know, creating it, crafting it. It's very depressing. But you just have to keep working, right? You just have to keep on.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, and I see what Chris means about the idea of you know, like it's kind of like under the greater economic system of capitalism, artists and creative people in general, we rely on intellectual property to pay our bills. But
that's it.
We don't necessarily have to agree with it, or like, you know, it's like we can envision a society outside of it and shit. Because I see a lot of people that are artists that are also communists, and people being like, well, why don't you just like release all of your shit like Creative Commons or something like that, you know? And it's kind of like, yeah, like, I mean, and a lot of people do that, which is great and stuff, but it's like at the end of the day, you still have to, you know, you still got to pay rent and stuff, you know, and it's like, that's why we sometimes end up doing things that, you know, might contradict with our greater, you know, vision for society or whatever. But I
mean, like, I believe that the value of art, like I was saying earlier, is only how it makes someone feel. Like the art market, like the fine art market is like just like speculative finance, right? It's not actually
it's used for investment capital.
And
exactly, it's
a lot of people 100%. Like are like, oh, why does that cost so much? It's like, I could do that, and it's like they don't give a shit about what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like in that sense, I'm like, yeah, this music that I've made is not worth anything. Like, but at the same time, it cost a lot to make, and I still need to eat.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, in an ideal world where from each according to their ability to each according to their need, I would be able to live and eat and create and give it away for free. That would be awesome. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be great.
There we go. That's the right way.
After the revolution, I would still love to just, tattoo people, for free or whatever, my friends, and do cool stuff or whatever like that. Like I wouldn't give up just because it's my job now,
No, because
like I would still love to do it. I would, exactly. It would just be, I would have a different relation to it, But we should get some more of these questions going.
Yeah, we have officially run over time. So Alasdair, is it okay to take up a little more of your time past what we said? Okay, cool.
We did start late, so I appreciate that.
I'm having a great time.
Okay, cool.
Let's do this.
Okay, cool.
In that case, It Is Me Crystal 4 asked, how do you reckon with the argument that experimental / avant-garde / weird music is inherently elitist because experimentalism, according to this argument, alienates the working class?
I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah,
to what extent not?
Think about who invented jazz,
I feel like this is this is misaligning popular culture, which is actually constructed by where the money will advertise something, with popular as in most people enjoy this and would choose this given a completely even playing field of tastes, right?
So much of the experimental and avant-garde stuff is made at the lowest echelons of the hierarchy. That's why it's weird.
Especially in extreme music, with bands in metal like Napalm Death, and then going back earlier Throbbing Gristle and stuff like that. These are made by working class people that were kind of it was art projects as well as music, where they're deliberately trying to push boundaries and all these kind of things. And it's I think over time it has kind of become people it's weirder stuff has kind of become an association with people being overeducated and this kind of
prog rock, right? It's the prog rock.
My good friend and previous guest of the show, Sean Davies from Just Stop Oil, talks about this with me in person a lot, because he did I think it was classical music or something at Royal Northern in Manchester, and he talked about how fucking frustrating it is when you're trying to talk to people who are so obsessed with the conservatoires and what so and so composer is doing, etc., when you're trying to talk to them about trying to make that music accessible for the working class, they just come up across so many barriers, because they say, oh well, those people don't have the time to actually think about the origins of this music and stuff. And it's no, I'll tell you what it actually is. Yeah, I'll tell you what it actually is. It's actually because fucking classical Western music is white supremacist as fuck.
Yeah.
And, and if you say to a bunch of I don't know, migrants, yo, listen to this classical music, they'll be we listen to this all the time. It's exported all over the fucking world. What do you think? What do you expect? Do you know what I mean? Of course we know what this is. We don't fucking care. But it's not about that they don't want to engage in avant-garde stuff, because Sean wasn't making that kind of classical music. It was he was talking about new, fresh, bizarre ideas. I shot a video for Sean once, that's how we know each other, where he was swinging around a Bluetooth speaker in a pair of tights, walking around a church, and people were sat there with their eyes closed, and it was just noise that was coming out of the various different frequency levels of noise. And it's that shit should be available to fucking everybody. Just come and get a bit weird with it, right?
This reminds me of I saw Aphex Twin like a million years ago, and he sat under, there was like a table with a laptop and a blender on it, and he sat underneath it for most of the time and didn't get out. And then he came out and he put the microphone into the blender a bunch of times, and it was like, it actually was so sick. It was so good.
I think also, like, I don't know what you think about this, Alasdair, but I think there is also like an element of gatekeeping when with that stuff, because it's like, you know, oh my God, you know, we can't have these people learning the secrets of what it means to be an amazing musician. Because what Tim just said there, what Aphex Twin did, is actually, whether he knew he was doing it or not, is actually pretty smart, because if you just show the audience, like, this is how I make my music. Do you know what I mean?
It can be fucking anything.
Yeah, it can like, literally be anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you think about
that's a very like, that's like a theme of, like I would say that's like a theme of like Aphex Twin's music. And there's like various projects and shit like that. Like, he's very cognizant of the fact that he's you know, like, kind of pulling the curtain away, but also being as disruptive as possible.
I like the idea that it's elitist is like a construction in order to like make it inaccessible, right? Like, it's only like it's only alienating if like you tell people that it is.
True.
Like, if like when a lot of people hear metal for the first time, they're like, it's just noise, and they don't have like the cultural like tools to necessarily decode, but like they can connect to a feeling and an idea, like in a variety of contexts. I don't know, like it, man, it's just music, man.
Yeah, I agree.
Have a laugh.
Have a laugh, yeah.
Like,
so we got one more question here from Priso saying, David Rovich. I've never known how to pronounce this guy's name. David Rovich's talks, or used to talk a lot about the importance of using revolutionary music in other contexts, e.g., news shows like Democracy Now!, protests, demonstrations, conventions, etc. Do you have any experience performing for or at protests or other leftist contexts? What do you wish leftist organizers kept in mind with regards to including music as part of their organizing?
The closest that we've come to like performing in a exclusively leftist context would be like at squats.
Hell yeah.
Like we played at a squat in Weimar, and like especially in like mainland Europe, like a lot of the places that we would play would be places with queer flags like on stickers, like plastered all over the walls. They're like Antifa places. They're co-ops. But like in terms of like, no, we've never played at a demonstration, we've never played at a rally. It would be like, I think, a bit of a pain to like get all of the stuff together to make that work. Like, I'm definitely not opposed to it. It would be super cool. Like one of the reasons that folk music works so well for like in leftist spaces is it's very portable. Like you can just pick up your guitar and go, and you know.
I love taking my Marshall stack to the fucking spot, you know what I mean?
I've been meaning to learn which side are you on the guitar for a while, so I can bring it to progress.
There's a black metal band that includes that in one of their albums. Panopticon's Kentucky.
Sick.
Kentucky is a fucking amazing. If you haven't heard this album, it's amazing. It's about
Come All Ye Coal Miners.
It's about a coal mining strike. It's a fucking genius like album, like a black metal concept album about coal miners union. Amazing. So Richard Dawson, who's like kind of this like weirdo folk guy, fucking rules. He said something once in an interview I saw about referring to his kind of music as like he wanted to be a revival of what he called ritual community music, as opposed to just like folk music, like a guy with a guitar or something like that. And he kind of like leans heavily on these old kind of like you know, like there's folk music, but then like actual like music, like folk music sort of thing back in the day or whatever, like this idea of yeah, like music being like this community thing
Making
or
together,
whatever.
yeah.
And yeah. And I thought that that really kind of like, I guess, like links into that kind of you know, like the leftist folk protest music kind of thing pretty well. Like I found that really interesting.
That's what's like, because protests and rallies and marches are musical already. Because of the stuff that Sophie does, you know, it's the chanting, it's the clapping, like all of these things are music, and they're communal, like they're the people's music inherently. And I'm not sure that like us performing on a stage above other people is like the essence of what we're trying to do in that. Like we're like, I love performing, it's brilliant, I love being there with the crowd and all the rest of it, but like there's something so much more powerful about everybody, like without any like hierarchy.
A huge tradition down here of in protests down in Aotearoa, like well, I would say like most working class protests have like a significant Maori presence, and so there's like often a kind of you know, like there'll be like waiata, which is like a kind of traditional song sort of thing like that, but also like kapahaka, like, you know, like what most people are probably familiar with seeing like the All Blacks doing and shit like that before a rugby game and stuff like that. But like a lot of traditional haka are like there's like kind of like a call and a response, and there's like all these kind of things like that, and there's like a huge kind of rhythmic section, and like, you know, there's like slapping of like body parts and stomps and stuff like that, and it like goes off so hard at like a protest, you know.
I was just saying this in the
it's like
Red Planet chat before the show, right? Like if we have mixes for the show for the future where we put like clips in of us talking and stuff like that, other stuff that we want to like put into a mix for the title song, I'd really like to get like a crowd chanting Alerta Antifascista as one of the samples, because it's so like, it's got such a powerful rhythm to it.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, like that I love that idea of like the rhythm of the protest. I remember going to one years ago. It was like a big kind of you know, like Black Lives Matter kind of deal down here, that there was like a dude, there was like two dudes that showed up. One came up first and he just had like he had one of those like one-man band kind of setups, and then there was like another guy that showed up with a saxophone, and they just kind of like ended up joining together, and it just like, it went from being this very like kind of just like this march that was kind of, you know, like a little bit kind of people wandering around or whatever, to it became like very unified like very quickly. And and it was just like going off, you know, and it was just, I don't know, like people were making memes about it, about like, you know, like D&D memes about having like a bard in the party and shit like that. It's like, it totally is true though, like that kind of like sense of like rhythm that you know, goes through everybody. Everyone just starts falling in line with it, you know, like everyone just jumps on the beat.
Also, I think this kind of lines up with what Jay and Issa were talking about from the Laboratory of Insurrection Imagination. Like, you know, we don't want people to see protest as this like, you know, dour-faced bunch of like middle-aged men just holding signs like like we want it to be like, you know, people having a great time. When I did the Defend the Strikes march with the union on like, I don't know, in like the middle of early February or something, the band that came with us, the like samba band with the drums and stuff, it just made it look like a rave. Do you know what I mean? Like the march just was it was just a party basically. It was fucking sick, and people were like loving it, even though they didn't know what it was. They were like, "Yeah, this rocks."
During the like Iamata occupation, there was like, because there was so many people from, you know, so many different kind of careers, walks of life, or whatever. A lot of people were just like, "What can I bring? Like, what can I do to help set up?" So people were like bringing in. There was like people that ran food trucks that were just bringing in and setting up kitchens and things like that. But there was like some dude that like he owned some business for like you know, like PAs and amps and stuff like that. So they just set up like a stage, and then people like musicians and stuff, like a lot of Maori musicians just kind of showed up, and before you know it, it like actually was like, it was like people doing speeches, people kind of like, you know, talking about like, you know, like I guess like the greater political kind of thing, as opposed to just like, oh, this is stolen land or whatever, like you're talking about like the history of stuff, and then just like random like bands and singers and stuff like that, and it turned into like kind of became like this. Well, I mean, I would say that like the vibe was always very positive or whatever, but it went from this thing where it was like, okay, the police have surrounded everyone and it's very kind of like very dark and kind of like people are nervous, people don't know what's going to happen, to just kind of becoming this really like positive kind of thing. And it also made it really hard for the media to frame it in any other way. It was like, oh, look, there's all these people here and they're like having a great time and it's really positive and everyone's taking care of each other and all this kind of stuff. So
after we ran the turf set of Hyde Park the other day, they went to Speaker's Corner to try and film like a last 5 minutes before they all had to get the train home of them being like, these biological males are all mentally ill, and we took the sound system we'd brought and just like sang along to Teenage Dirtbag in front of the cops. I think Emma Goldman said, if it can't dance, it's not my revolution.
Yeah, this is it. Like fundamentally, we are seeking a world filled with life, right? Like, and our actions should reflect that. As soon as we accept like that we're the miserable po-faced ones, then like who wants to be part of that? Like, and it's not the world that we're trying to create. That's the world we've got. It's shit.
That is really fucking based.
All right.
Alasdair, go on.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask if Alasdair had any thoughts about homework. He should be intimately familiar with the concept of homework as a teacher. You like to set homework for the chat because they're all little nerds and they like having things to do based on what we've been talking about. Right. So would you have any homework for the chat today?
Like, to be honest, one of the I was thinking about this because it was in the questionnaire ahead of this. I was like, Jesus, what should people do? I think like fundamentally, one of the best ways to like, and I realized that there was some discourse about this on Twitter not that long ago. But I think you should go and like talk to your neighbors, and ask them what their names are and what they're interested in, and invite them around for dinner.
Well, lucky for our chatters, we've already signed that as homework to them early in Red Planet. So if you didn't get a chance to do that,
you can do it again.
Miraculous and a miraculous second opportunity.
There will be a third and a fourth.
Second piece of homework then. Go and make something. Just like it's human to create. And by simply creating anything at all, you are defying the imperative that you've been given since you were born to work and die. So go and make something and share it with people, and fall in love with yourself.
And when your boomer parents say, "Oh, you should do this, you should sell this," you say, "No, shut up." Because you're trying to just create for the sake of creation. Mom, just sorry, I just wanted to say that out loud for some reason.
Get it out. Gotta get it out. Alasdair, it has been a pleasure. Do you have anything else to plug? Any links, stuff of that nature?
Like you can follow the band on various different social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. I'm usually the one running those, so like that's fine there. I have all my private stuff fairly locked down because I'm a teacher, and so I can't be sharing that around. But yeah, like there's loads of like music for you to listen to, and hope you have good time doing it. And
yay. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for going overtime with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me overtime.
It's been delightful.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Lovely to meet you all.
Likewise. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Arrivederci.
So that was a fantastic show, everyone. I thought that was really, really cool. We've been meaning to talk about revolutionary art for a long time. Like, I remember that was one of the first things that you ever started speaking to me about, Sophie, was like building leftist culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was reading about how Germans at the turn of the 19th century had a bunch of 20th century had a bunch of just like social clubs where they would go rowing and shit, but they were like socialist clubs, and it's like implicitly to be in them you had to be a socialist. And I was like,
that's Tito did a bunch with socialist football clubs. It was like a huge thing. But they were actually like, like, we're going to play football and we're also going to talk about communism.
Exactly.
Cool. Well,
that
was great.
Well, if you want to help build leftist culture, you can't go wrong if you support the Red Planet Patreon.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Uh-oh.
How do we get here? I don't remember where we were. It was so smooth.
That segue was so
here?
So smoothly. Yes, that's right.
Well, so if you do want to help us create, more leftist content, like aside from just the streams, we do have other plans for other things in the future. But you can jump on over to patreon.com/red_planet. And we've got a couple different membership levels here. The first one being Sprite mode. So for me, in New Zealand dollars, this is $4 a month, a measly 4 New Zealand dollars. I don't know, how much is that? How much is that for you, Kira? How many American dollars is that?
The Sprite mode?
$2.
$2.
$2.
Yeah, and so
Jesus fucking Christ.
If you pay those two cheeky American dollars, you can so you get Sprite mode, which is the most basic one, which means you get the sacred and forbidden knowledge that you are helping the Red Planet team. But you also get early access to the VODs when we upload them, and you also get access to our Discord, which is where all the hard-hitting discussions happen. But if you want to pay a little bit more, Mule, why don't you tell us about the next tier?
I have no reason to not tell anyone about the next tier. It's Goblin mode. It's my favorite tier. You get loads of stuff with this one. Are you ready, chat? Or listeners, you strap in. It's £9.50 a month plus VAT. Everyone loves the Goblin. We all get a little Goblin mode from time to time. Complete your gobology by going Goblin mode with everything from Sprite mode, a pack of cool Red Planet stickers for you to stick in legal places and only in places like that, and access to exclusive Red Planet Discord hangouts like the one that we spoke about on the stream, on the show earlier today. And if you'd have been there as a Goblin mode haver of that tier, then you would have known what we were talking about, wouldn't you? And you could have got involved with the conversation, but you didn't. So you should do that now. And the next tier up from that, what's that, Sophie? What's that one?
That one's called Beast mode. It's kind of a scary mode to be in.
It is, but I agree.
It will intimidate your enemies at least. So that's £19 a month. I'm guessing it's like $25. And the text here that I have to read says, "Holy shit, are you actually going to go beast mode?" Well, then we can offer you all the stuff from the lower tiers and pin badges. I'm reading it as it's written. There's lots of question marks and exclamation marks here. Yep, pin badges. Wear your excellent new Red Planet pin badge literally everywhere. It is completely cool and good to do so. So that will be, like we were just saying, supporting us, access to Discord and the Hangouts, Red Planet stickers, and Red Planet pin badges. But there's something really, really special above that people could do if they wanted to, if they had the disposable cash to throw around and they really wanted to support us. And that's, well, Kara, what is that?
Well, thank you for asking, Sophie. That's sicko mode for $100 US dollars a month. Or how many pounds?
194, apparently.
194 a month.
No,
94.
94.
Yep.
Oh,
Jesus, what happened to the UK overnight?
You can give us £194 if you want to. That's fine.
Yeah,
you can send your
really good
amount on the website.
Right. If you support us this much, we can only reasonably offer you all the stuff from the lower tiers, plus a very special thank you message at the end of every stream. So for today, we would like to thank two sickos, Goblin Games NZ and JBP. Thank you for being our sickos and supporting us and feeding our producer Conrad his gruel.
It is so amazing that Jordan B. Peterson supports the Red Planet show.
That's because he knows that we uphold order and not chaos.
Yeah. It's because Sophie found him in a bar and cornered him and debated him, and now he's now a sicko.
It's true, I did. It's true. I got him off the benzos as well.
Yeah, because how much more do we need before we get? Because our next goal is to get an editor.
Yes.
Then, so our previous goal was to get Conrad, and we got Conrad, so that's really fucking cool.
And it's been a huge help, by the way. Like enormous help.
It would seriously be that much help for us to get an editor. So we really want to hit this next goal.
Really want to hit this next goal. Oh, can we get it up? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Listen. You've had what you can get from me today.
On my end, it says we have 637 pounds and 14 pence out of 913 pounds and 34 pence. Per month as the goal, but I think it's probably cleaner in dollars. I'm not sure. That's clearly a conversion thing. But the point is, we're most of the way there. We're like 3 sickos away, or what would that be? Like, I don't fucking maths. God damn it! If we got like 150 sprites all of a sudden, that would fucking whip. That would be cool as hell.
Yeah.
But it's 15 goblins. 15 goblins. DM me if you're 15 goblins.
Yeah, and if we do hit that next thing, Mule has promised that he will play a role-playing game on stream.
I keep forgetting about that. I'm glad other people are remembering.
But we're not allowed to forget
about
account. That. Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Goblin Games indeed never forgets. You know. Like, so.
Yeah. True. It's
and
also
by the way, that means that I also play a role-playing game, and this is not as widely publicized, but my community knows how much I make fun of D&D gamers and stuff. So this is me doing the thing, and I'm sure it satisfies some people to see.
On a serious note, to do with how it would help the show, if we had an editor, we would be able to put a lot of clips all over social media of how cool and funny we are, which would bring more people to watch the show. But also, it would enable us to make documentary content. We really want to. We've been invited to go to the ZAD with Jay and Issa and have a look around, and we really want to do that shit. It would be really cool.
Want to do that.
And there's other stuff like that with other like climate activists and people who are in places that like. Just Zoom calling with them is not the whole picture, and we'd really like to film it and edit it and release it. And that would be possible if we had an editor.
How about this?
So please help us out.
I want to sweeten the deal a little bit. For my chatters will understand this. If we hit the goal, I promise you 1 hour of mubbles.
Oh my god.
1 hour of mubbles if we hit the goal.
You literally can't say no to that. Look at all Kira's chatters losing it.
Yeah.
In the
this
chat
deal
right
just
now.
gets sweeter all the time. God damn.
Yeah, and I'm not. This is me. You know, just shut up. Be quiet.
We're talking.
Shut your mouth.
We're talking mobbles. We're talking. Me and Kira have to play a Dungeons and Dragon, and also I do.
This is too nice.
A cyberpunk hacker photo shoot as well, which is another thing that I said I'd do. So we've got that. But then also, if you're not bothered about any of that, just think about how good it would be to see like a properly well-produced and edited and filmed and all that nonsense. Like, you know, maybe me and Sophie go to the ZAD, or like Tim go and chat to someone from Papa, or like Kira go and check out something like Cop City or something like that, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, imagine what you could have with your Red Planet correspondence out in the field. Imagine what a very cool and base thing that would be. So, with all that in mind, Sophie, if anyone who's listening or watching this show that wants to, where can they find your stuff?
My stuff is generally at Sophie from Mars on pretty much all the platforms. Sometimes it's spelled Sophie_FRM_Mars. I am a video essayist on YouTube. That is my primary thing. I talked a lot today about my my upcoming project about doomerism called The World Is Not Ending. That will be available early quite early, actually. I'm going to make it and then withhold for a little while because we want to watch it live as a little special early premiere on Mule's stream. But it'll be generally available quite a bit early on patreon.com/Sophie from Mars, and that also supports everything that I do, pays my bills, helps me to eat lots of chicken, and that's how I stay strong. So if you want me to be strong, then go to patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. But if you want Tim to be strong, well, that's a different question. Tim, how can people online make you stronger?
It's so weird.
You can buy every time I tweet, every time I quote tweet a reactionary figure highlighting the unwashed ass, and you like it, I become stronger. Like the Highlander, it's every time I defeat them, I perform the quickening and absorb their power through lightning. It's just that.
Yeah.
Exactly like that. Kira knows all about that.
Yeah,
she's doing
totally.
it all the time.
She's a massive Highlander head.
She watches it every day, every single day. She watches it. Yeah,
I'm watching it right now.
You can find me, over on Twitter at Dread Conquest, or you can find me on YouTube and Twitch as Conquest of Dread. Highlander Watch Party. Let's make it happen. What about Mule? Where can we find DJ Mule and all his strength?
Well, Tim, you can find me at DJ Mule on most things. It's DJ MUEL for the listeners. I am also at DJ MU3L on Instagram and TikTok, I think, because someone stole my name there. Patreon is the most important one there. I'm just DJ Mule on that with no letters. With no numbers. I'm currently making in the progress of making my Berserk as a queer polyamorous love story video, and the one after that, which is Berserk as an anarchist analysis of the cycle of abuse under power structures. I will be resuming that when I retrieve my drone from the tree tomorrow, which will actually be filmed. Maybe this thing at the start of the stream that I showed you has something to do with that.
Oh, it's the bow. He's bringing it back out.
Oh, wow.
Whoa, it's planting and payoff.
Oh my God.
Are you going to shoot it out of the tree?
Bow Deus Ex Machina. Tim, if you want to find out, you'll have to become a patron over at DJ Mule on patreon.com. And so as soon as I get...
I love your brain. I love your mind. I love your soul. Thank you for being you.
Just whatever happens, just film it. Just please film it.
I will, I promise. That's as soon as I get the drone out of the tree, editing will resume on my next videos. But what about beautiful, sweet Kira, kind Kira? Where can we find your stuff?
Well, thank you, Mule. You can find me everywhere under Kira Chats, on Twitter, on YouTube, although I haven't uploaded on YouTube for a while. I need to get back on that. What else? Twitch, all of my not safe for work socials that I cannot specify by name per Twitch's terms of service, but you can find all of that in my link tree. So my link tree is going to be under Kira Chats as well. So make sure you click on the first link. All right, thanks.
You killed it. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and who's listening on the podcast and all that kind of stuff. For everybody in the Twitch chat, we're gonna raid someone. I'm gonna find someone to raid. Let's have a look. We should raid.
Never tell me who to raid.
Do not tell me who to raid.
Never ever tell me who to raid.
Don't tell me who to raid. I'll fucking go sick.
He'll opposite day it, and then he'll hate you.
Yeah, I will, actually. That is how it'll work. I can't see ever. I don't want to think too much, so we're just gonna raid Queen Pib. She's amazing. We raided her before.
Yay!
You know the score. Yeah, that's
cool.
Love
thank
Queen
you so
Pib.
much.
And next
everybody.
week we're chatting to Mildred from Thought Slime about yellow unions. And if you don't know what that is, I guess you're gonna have to tune in.
It's the only way to find out.
Right, and she should say it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Good night.
Bye,
God
Bye,
bless.
Bye,
See you later.
listeners.
Solidarity.